welcome to a new episode of the Game Informer Show. I am your host, Ben Hanson, joined by trusty co-host Timothy Turi.
I hope that you can trust me, and I hope that you can trust me out there viewing and listening just to help usher in a really good show.
Absolutely. Yeah. And to help usher, our two ushers at the wedding that is this episode of the podcast, we have Mr. Jeffrey Cork.
I'm loving it. This is a great direction.
Yes.
Keep it going.
And then we have the great Kyle Hilliard.
Hey, I'm great.
Are you with the bride or the groom?
Bride.
Congratulations.
This way, please.
Or what did you say to the woman? What's the custom there?
It's just spelled differently.
I
good
think
luck?
it's just thank you.
What are you doing?
Who's getting married in this situation? Is it you two?
Just the everyone that's listening and us.
Oh,
this is it.
That's
Okay.
right. The viewers and listeners are getting married to this content because it's going to be such a good goddamn show.
Yes, we guarantee it.
Absolutely. So, starting out, we're going to talk a little bit about Mario Maker, talk a little bit about Tearaway Unfolded, catch up with some Mad Max, Metal Gear stuff, and a bunch of other nonsense before we get to
Emails.
Thank you, Tim.
We got a bunch of emus.
That's right.
And then after that, we're going to talk to Jason Michael Paul, who is the producer of the Zelda Symphony of the Goddesses concert tour. You might have heard about it back in 2011 at E3. There was a pack-in with Skyward Sword, bunch of awesome tracks that have been sort of redone with an orchestra. He also did the Dear Friends Final Fantasy tour, the replay, not to be confused with our replay. Anyway, so we talk all about the tour that's going on right now, Symphony of the Goddesses, which is a really fun show.
Yeah. But I'm excited to be back in the studio. We did last week's show from Las Vegas on the convention floor.
You were just talking about, before we started the show, we were talking about one of our favorite podcasts, which is Comedy Bang Bang.
Oh, sure.
And you're talking about how, if you click into a live, this one's coming at you live from, Cork's just nope, I don't think so. Not this episode.
With the Crack podcast, we're talking about that. But yeah.
Don't do that with last week, though, if you haven't listened yet.
Well, I think there's a difference because the convention floor, there were 12 seats set out in front of the little stage that we're broadcasting from. But the only people sitting there were a couple people that we work with. Because you couldn't hear the show at all.
Perfect.
The PA system was not great. So normally they had the kind of funny guys out there, and there were a few stragglers for that were trying to pay attention, but you really just had to focus in the super loud convention floor. So
listen to the Twitch live stream in your ears as it's delayed by a few moments.
And that's really the best way to hear it from the show floor. But I think the reason I don't like live stuff is I don't like that pressure of trying to kind of satiate the crowd and always playing off it, and it's much less relaxed.
Plus, you have that headset with the mic coming in. It's weird. Right?
Yeah, and I really wanted to take a drink of water during the entire show last week, but I didn't want to drown the mic.
Yeah.
As I was trying to choke because it was so tight around my mouth.
But you did a great job. Obviously, the big thing from last week was the Dark Souls 3 cover reveal.
Yeah. And you were on that cover story trip. We went to Japan a couple weeks ago.
That was super exciting. And I think we'll have an opportunity to talk a little bit about that trip later on. But
seems like it went really well. That's cool.
I mean, just the trip to Tokyo itself. But yeah, the trip, we got a long talk with Miyazaki about Dark Souls 3.
Right.
That's about all the new info we got. But there's some good nuggets within that. But we don't have new gameplay or anything like that. But we have a Let's Play going on right now.
Yeah, Dark Souls 1.
We call it Chronicles. It's just Dan Tack and I
It's
playing
Super
it
Replay
right now.
minus Reiner, I think is
But anyway, I know that we're here to talk about other games, but real quick, I played a bunch of Dark Souls 3 when we were in Tokyo at Bandai Namco, and I played Bloodborne earlier this year. Really loved it. Before that, I had played Dark Souls 2. That was the one I cut my teeth on. If you've always been kind of curious about Dark Souls, but Bloodborne was your entry point, and you kind of already went through your paces on that, and it's kind of like a trial by fire, your first From Software game is, Dark Souls 3 feels a lot like Bloodborne, just in the terms of speed and fluidity and stuff like that. So I think that this is going to be a natural step for people that like Bloodborne and maybe didn't even like Dark Souls or try it to click over and do it, because it felt more like Bloodborne to me.
I kind of miss the art of Bloodborne, looking at the Dark Souls 3 stuff that we played, where it's there are kind of off-screen videos out there and stuff of kind of the castle area, but it's just kind of generic fantasy again.
It's really the established From Software dark fantasy theme, but within that, within Dark Souls, they go to some crazy places, and it gets really beautiful, and it's going to look awesome on next-gen consoles, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, once we get out of the castle area, we'll have a better sense.
Maybe the highlight of that castle area that we saw was on the roofs when you're running, and there's just that one guy whose head explodes, and it's this
It's almost like a Las Plagas type thing.
It really is. Yeah, from Resident Evil 4.
Yeah.
Where it's just this huge black crazy thing that comes out the top of his head.
It's like From Software somehow one-upping their own monster design. They've always been really good with these weird, just, you think like every monster it's based on something. Like, that's just, a weird person. That's a weird bug. That one's a spider.
That one's Tim's girlfriend.
Oh, she's a beautiful, strong, independent woman, Ben. How dare you?
Go on.
And she's going to listen to this episode. But basically, they made this really weird, unnatural-looking thing, and it's
From
hard
Software.
to describe.
Unnatural-looking thing?
Yeah. Regardless, that's the Dark Souls 3 chatter.
Yeah, but we were in Japan, and we got a chance to get our hands on some Japanese arcade games like Pokken.
We did play Pokken.
We did the Pokemon Tekken fusion thing.
Oh, okay. I always thought it was Pokken.
Who did you choose?
Maybe it's Pokken.
I chose
because
Gengar.
it's Pokemon and
Quiet,
then
Kyle.
Tekken. Sorry, this is important to me.
It really is a lot of stuff. Let's see. I chose Gengar. Tim, I forget who you chose. Pikachu, I think?
No, it was... Yeah, I think I was.
Deep cut.
Because the first thing I saw, the thing I think of is like that really weird picture of... what is it, the Hitmon... No, the guy with the multiple arms. Looks like Goro. Machamp, yeah. He looked weird. Looked a little bit too ripped.
Yeah. Something, maybe I just haven't been paying attention to that game beyond the reveal, but I didn't know that it was a 3D fighter. I was expecting it to be very much closer, like a lot closer to Tekken, where you can like kind of rotate if you want to, but it's like Power Stone-esque, like run around in a 3D little arena.
How many characters are in this game's Pokédex?
I think there are maybe 10.
It was pretty limited.
Holy
But
cow,
maybe on
10.
Wii U they'll bump it up. But like you choose a character and then you also get to choose one or two little Pokemon assistants that you can call in basically like a special move.
Okay.
Like, that'll come in and do like their Fire Blast or something, then head on out. But we only played one match. It seemed okay.
Yeah.
It wasn't too popular in the Japanese arcades.
We clicked over to like I'd been playing some Street Fighter 4 and we didn't understand how Japanese arcades work, where fighting games you sit on opposite sides. Like they'll have a row like of 4 consoles or cabinets on one side, and on the opposite side they'll have a mirrored set of 4. And if you're fighting someone, you should be on the opposite side of them.
So you can't look at them, which sucks.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, maybe it's just a cultural thing or whatever, but so we didn't get that going with Street Fighter, but we did play the computer a lot. I played someone online because they're all connected online. Man, I'd been playing a lot with my fight stick. Felt like butter on those Japanese arcade cabinets.
They felt really nice.
Like I was pulling off like Hadoukens and Shoryukens with more consistency than I ever had. And the other cool little thing was just that there was just the 3 punch and 3 kick buttons, so that you had to be hardcore. And if you wanted to do like your Metsu Hadouken or whatever, you had to hit all 3 simultaneously. It's cool. Then we played Tekken 7, right?
Yeah, which also isn't out here yet.
Right.
But I was horror-rang my guy from Tekken Tag, Mr. Kicking Man, with orange hair.
And I was someone who crouched and punched a lot because we may have stopped at a convenience store beforehand, and convenience stores sell all sorts of beverages 24 hours
Adult
a day.
beverages?
Yeah, and they have these really good ginger... it was like a ginger beer type thing. It was like ginger ale, but like extra ginger in it.
Yeah.
Turns out it mixes really well with whiskey.
So this is all a reason why Tim just got annihilated in Tekken 7.
Yeah, all that is to say is that you had an unfair advantage. We also, when we were at Bandai Namco, we got to play the Star Wars Battle Pod, that huge thing. Did you see that thing?
We need one of those for the office.
A little underwhelming. I was expecting
I
a little
loved
more like free control, but I mean, clearly it's on rails. And like there's a little boost thing on your left to control your speed. And it doesn't actually change the environments at all, or just change like how close the ships are in the distance.
I think it was subtle, but
I don't think it did.
All right,
I'm pretty confident.
Anyway, I liked it more than Ben. It felt good. Basically, all you're doing is like highlighting ships and shooting them, and there was like sort of a lock-on thing, and it was very much on rails. It reminded me of a better version of the Star Wars Trilogy arcade that was out in the 90s, around the time of the special editions. But I mean, if you have that kind of money to throw around, buy it and invite me over so I can play more.
The coolest thing about that battle pod is like, the first mission was like trench run. Second mission was on Hoth. And when you choose the Hoth mission and you fly down to the planet, it blasts like AC on you.
It did.
So like this thing apparently has like an AC unit built into or something, so everything gets cold when you're on Hoth.
Japan in late August. I mean, can't get enough of the Hoth level. You know what I mean?
But really, does it really make sense? I mean, you're in a ship. Is it really that much colder than outer space when you're on the trench run?
Don't overthink this one.
Okay,
man.
it's all right.
Maybe the integrity of the ship had been cracked or
Maybe
something.
you roll down your windows when you're on Hoth a little bit. Just
true.
crack the windows.
They
You
fog
can't do
up
that in space.
otherwise.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a good point. Should we talk about some other games?
Like more current games that people can play in America.
you guys have got to go to Japan. We do recommend everybody goes to Japan.
Yes,
though.
before
It's
you
just
die, especially
it's a wonderful place.
if you like video games, it's like the most magical place on earth.
Yeah. Kyle, I guess the biggest release this week is Super Mario Maker, man.
Yeah,
Coming out
on Friday.
tomorrow. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what can you say about this game that hasn't been said already? Because there's just, I feel like there's this fever pitch of excitement for this game.
It's really cool. I
Nice.
I texted a friend of mine earlier because he was asking me. He was like, "Should I get this? Like, I'm excited about
Just
everything."
read the text exchange out loud and keep going back
My phone's
up in the
over there.
feed
Do
as
you want me
well.
to actually like get up and go get my phone?
Hi, is this Kyle?
But basically, what I told him is like, because he was contemplating, should I buy this or should I buy, Call of Duty or whatever this year? And I was like, and I was like, the thing
parallel is obvious.
Yeah. The thing is like, this game is you kind of make your own fun with it. Like you're building Mario levels. Like the content that's there, that the levels that Nintendo made is really brief. They're very good levels.
Wait, I thought there were like 100 of them or something.
But they're super short. Like you can get through them all in like, I don't know, like an hour, 2 hours maybe.
Really?
Yeah. It's
the hell kind
they're
of Mario
super
levels
short.
are these?
Are they supposed to just be like demonstrating certain ideas?
Yeah, like you
Okay.
play them and then you can unlock. You can actually tweak them like after you play through them.
Okay.
I mean, some are longer, but most of them are really short. Like you could get through them all in one sitting. So, I mean, the most fun. I had a ton of fun with it, but the most fun I had with it was like sitting down with you guys and like making stuff and trying stuff out. And I really did like going online and seeing what other people were building. It does a really good job of throwing like random levels at you and like so giving you a taste of everything. But ultimately, like it's what you make of it, because it really is a tool. Like
Right.
it's less of like a Mario game and more of like just a really well-designed tool for making levels. And I had a lot of fun with it,
Based on what you've played, do you think this is going to be good for someone who's not really interested in making a ton of levels, but they want to play an endless stream of good Mario levels, and they just buy it to go online and play everyone else's?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Because it's really good about because there's a couple different modes and you do get rewards for playing random levels online. Like there's like 50 or something like different costumes that you can unlock. And every time you beat like a set of random online levels, you get a new costume.
And those are like the amiibo things, right?
Yeah.
Quick,
yeah.
so you don't need to buy amiibos in order to play as Link and all that fun stuff?
That's true, yeah.
That's
you can
cool.
unlock all that stuff, yeah.
Question: what happens when you put a Mario amiibo on Mario Maker?
You unlock a different colored Mario.
Nice.
Yeah, like because like NES Mario he doesn't have blue overalls and a red shirt, I think, right? Doesn't he?
Oh, right, yeah.
So you get like that sort of the appropriate color schemed Mario. If you
Really?
will.
Okay,
Yeah.
because the Mario Maker one has the blue overalls and white gloves and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting.
Okay. Yeah, but there is there's something that unlocks by putting them on there.
So what if I'm interested in this game? I really want to make my own levels. But what if I'm not great at Mario levels and gameplay? I'm worried that I'm going to go online and every time I play a level, it's like, hey, look how hard this one is.
Well, so
MFR.
it does. It is weird that
Mario
it says
fan?
that. It would have been a T-rated game except for that one time where it drops the F-bomb at you. But there's difficulties. So like you can actually just play 10 easy levels. And the way it like dictates that is like it looks at how many people have been able to beat that level. So if it's like a 70% rate of like being completed, that'll fall in the easy category.
That's clever.
Oh, that's
and
really
if it's
smart.
like only been beat like 10% of the time that people play it, it drops into the harder category. And it's also, you can just skip a level. If you're struggling, you can just like swipe on the gamepad and just keep moving forward.
I want to
So,
know what
You look upset about this. You kind of look disturbed.
I'm more disturbed
it.
by how often Jeff Cork yawns when he's on this podcast.
Something about the lights, I think, honestly.
Oh my
And
God.
the quality of your
I didn't
conversation.
even hear that one. What I have such an exciting question for you, Kyle Hilliard.
All right, wake me up.
Oh yeah.
Here we go.
Are
Bang
you
that
ready?
desk harder.
Are you ready? There
we go. Let's do it.
A drum
Let's
roll.
do it.
Kyle,
That's me.
what style did you end up playing in the most?
Ooh.
And could you could always switch freely, right?
And part two, what does it say about your personality?
I don't. Okay, I'll address yours, Hanson, second. I kind of spent a lot of time in the 8-bit mode.
Okay.
When I was
Which 8-bit mode?
Love it.
the original Mario Brothers.
Okay.
Just because that's kind of where you start. That's where
Do
you learn to
mean
play the game.
Super Mario Brothers or
Yes.
the original
Excuse
Mario
me, Cork.
Brothers?
I know that you're now engaged in this conversation.
You woke me right up.
But I mean, I think like my favorite was Super Mario World, for the Super Nintendo. But just because you learn how to sort of build in that original Mario Brothers setting, That's kind of where I ended up spending the most time. And in terms of like switching whenever you want, you can switch whenever you want while you're building, but like once you complete your level, it's set as that type.
Because the physics
It
and everything
is.
changed.
Okay.
Yeah, the physics change and everything.
Got it.
So,
That was one little dangling question I had.
yeah.
Other question. What ended up being, do you have any moments that ended up being representative of like your favorite levels or like something that happened in it that was really like maybe even close to on par with like the Nintendo World Championship stuff or
I mean, some of the most fun we had with it was like just playing it on the hardest difficulty. Like it basically gives you 100 lives and it's like beat these 16. These are 16 of the hardest levels that are online. Play these. And it was super fun to just pass the controller and just play these brutally hard levels that were not made by Nintendo, so they're not always necessarily like well designed and showing you like what you need to do. So it was fun.
like trivially hard.
Yeah, like you like every question mark block was just like a gamble because you don't know if something crazy is going to come out of it or not. Like that was really that's something that I really enjoyed about it was that like nothing will be as it seems necessarily because it's all made by random people, you know.
I saw Castlevania Symphony, the Night Creator. There was a Polygon post where it was just him creating like a level. It was like 2-minute sample of Koji Igarashi's level.
Yeah.
And he's just like, it's so funny because it's like the most basic thing right away. It's like, here's this genius designer. And he's just like, my trick here, I'm going to put Bowser at the very beginning because you don't expect to have Bowser.
And then he just winked until us. Like,
Exactly.
It's like the Dracula fight.
Exactly. He's just like, "Hello, welcome to my castle." Blah. Oh, I fell in a pit. But it was fun to watch because, of course, he did like a haunted ghost house level. I think he did Super Mario World style graphics, but it was fun to watch. Yeah, he ran away from Bowser, and Bowser fell in a pit. But and he talked about how like, hey, you put this enemy this Koopa paratrooper that flies up and down on this platform that moves back and forth because it's confusing for the player. It was kind of fun to see that. I hope more of that crops up of famous developers.
Yeah, I think Michelle Ansel.
He made
Raymond
one that's packaged in, isn't there?
If it was packaged in there, they didn't highlight it.
Oh, weird.
Does that make sense?
But it says the name of the creator in the online thing. So can you follow specific creators?
You can, yeah. I mean, you can mark your favorites. Like you can mark your favorite levels, and then I think you can mark your favorite creators as well. Like you can look at somebody and play their sort of full library.
Okay, good.
So they make it easy that if someone follows you on Twitter, Kyle, and they're like, hey, I want to see what Kyle, what kind of awesome
You're
levels
gonna
Kyle
want to do
makes.
that too.
Yeah, because
Like
my levels
choice
are
cuts.
just absolutely just the best thing that's ever happened in
gosh.
video games.
People won't stop talking about move right, for instance.
I
How
actually
many are just
tweaked that
shaped
level
like your
dramatically.
daughter's face, and you just have to jump over her ears?
She does make cameos with her voice in quite a few levels.
good.
Oh, that's right. Is that going to get weird with the
That stuff
sampling?
doesn't go online. That's
the biggest
yeah.
buzzkill. I was so excited for this game to create like weird narratives throughout my Mario levels and then put it online. But it turns out it just turns into generic gibberish when it's put online.
I was so excited to announce the newest format of the Game Informer Show podcast. And it was
question mark blocks for every sentence.
Question mark blocks.
We're coming to you on iTunes. We got YouTube. We got Mario Maker.
Super Mario Maker. So you think that there is a pretty easy way for people just to like, you say, all right, well, this is me on Super Mario Maker, or is it all tied to your Nintendo ID?
I think that's tricky. I don't, because like the way they'll show like a list of the best creators, and then you can look and say, oh, like let me check out this guy. Let me check out this guy. In terms of like Tim, if you're like, hey, go play my levels, I don't think I can just look you up.
Okay.
I could be wrong about that. You can. It is really easy to generate a code that I can say, hey, play my level, here's the code.
So-
and then you enter the code, and that works that
Could you
way.
put that online? Like
Absolutely,
On
yeah.
Twitter or something? People could put that code in?
Yeah.
Okay, that's
smart.
great.
Yeah, in fact, I hope that like that I would like to like put out a request for people to send me their levels soon. Once
Yeah.
Mario Maker's out there for a while, so hopefully we can like play a bunch of community levels and stuff.
Yeah,
that'd be fun.
You're not ready
yeah.
to put out that request though.
Not yet. Don't do it. Do not do it yet. I'm
Listen to
gonna
Kyle.
delete. I'm gonna block you on Twitter if you send me your Mario.
If you're not watching the Game Informer show on YouTube, you can't see how deadly serious Kyle is.
yeah, the huge smile means I'm serious.
I have a super
grimace.
serious question.
Serious.
Yeah.
I've heard some mixed reports on this, and I want to get it straight from the
Oh my
source.
gosh.
Oh dear.
I'm
Mario
not the
1?
source. I didn't develop Mario Maker. By the way.
Mario 1,
Uh-huh.
can you run to the left?
Oh, you know what? I don't think you can.
Ooh,
didn't
I
even
like
occur to
that.
me.
I love
Yeah.
that they're that strict.
Yeah,
That's
because
great.
it basically sets up the start and end points for you, which I actually really liked because it makes it. That's like one aspect of creating a level that you just don't have to worry about.
What?
Like I
So
feel
you
like
can't extend it?
Oh, you can. You can move it, but it's set there, and then you can kind of grab it and move it. Like in Little Big Planet, you had to go into your tools and like grab the level ender and like place it at the end. That stuff's taken care of for you, so all you have to concentrate on is everything that happens in between the start and the end point. But in terms of mirroring it, so you go right to left, I don't think there's a way to
Here's
do that.
why I think you might be able to, is because I'm recalling the Nintendo World Championship and that first big level that was super difficult. There was like part of the crux of it is you'd miss your jumps and end up on a conveyor belt and end up going back a lot, I think, to the left.
I mean, I replayed those levels because they're included on the game.
They're on there.
And they definitely go left to right. But there is that like what you can do is like you can build a level where, like, for example, you can get shot all the way to the right and then you can kind of start the level there, but you would eventually have to make your way back to the end all the way on the right again.
Yeah, but wasn't that conveyor belt people like carrying
It was like
to the left?
It was basically like you were trying to make a complicated series of jumps moving left to right, and if you failed those, you would land on the conveyor belt and it would shoot you back to the beginning to try again.
Okay, you just couldn't move yourself. Yeah, okay, got it. All right.
Hey, Kyle. Based on the excitement about this game, is this the second coming of Christ? Was it the greatest experience known to man? Did it reinvigorate your love for Mario?
No, I will say I think it's probably the best like creation game I've played. I played a lot of Little Big Planet. I played a lot of Project Spark, but I had the most fun with Mario Maker because in terms of like actually getting my ideas up and running, I feel like it was the fastest with Mario Maker, and I had to finagle the least in terms of like, you know, fixing things or worrying about AI.
Plus, you have like complete freedom to make any kind of game you want as long as it's a Mario game.
Yeah.
So that's pretty
well,
great.
yeah, it's kind of like Little Big Planet 2 is so intimidating because of that. Like there's so much, but like this kind of squeezes it down to like just the purest sort of, you can make a really fun platform.
It's a visual and gameplay language that we've all known our entire lives. And I'm assuming that, like, how much of it do you think is that combined with like Nintendo just always putting that extra layer of polish and just making it as accessible as possible? Or is it just a perfect fusion?
Like, are you asking, like, is it mostly nostalgia?
Yeah, do you think that it's just easier and more fun to make levels because you know Mario?
Yes,
Okay.
I think that's fair to say. Like, even watching the Nintendo World Championships, like, one of the reasons it was so fun to watch those levels is because, like, you watch even, like, you know, like professional Halo or something, like, even if you're kind of familiar with the game, it's still complicated and there's still a lot more going on than you realize. But like Mario, it's like I know exactly what that stuff is. I've been seeing it all my life, and that makes it easier to create and easier to appreciate, I think, as well.
On the flip side of that, before we move on from Mario Maker, because I know we're all super excited about it, but there's a lot of other stuff to talk about.
Yeah,
is, you know, there's all those weird moments where it's like, well, this is what, you know, Bowser's weird clown like ship thing looks like in Mario 3.
Love it. Yeah,
is there any other examples that really stood out to you of just this, like taking one from another era and putting it into something else and how it looked and acted?
There's some things of moving from the future to the past too, like putting booze in the original Mario Brothers. But nothing that really stood out to me as just like I was like really excited to see like what it looked like in other sort of eras of Mario.
I wonder if there's anything from like the past. I'm trying to think of like old Mario games where that was never brought back, you know, and seeing what that would look like in New Super Mario Bros.
I guess those mushrooms. You know what I'm talking about? Those really those came back. No, talk about the platforms, the mushroom platforms.
Oh, like the trees.
Yeah.
I always call them. Yeah.
I feel like those came back. Those were in Mario World.
I bet they were.
Yeah,
probably.
But that's maybe a bad example. That's something that is in the game that you can kind of see through all the eras.
Regardless, I'm hoping that I can get pulled away from other modern games and actually make a level.
It's a good one. It'll be a good one to sort of dabble in for a night, if that makes sense. You know, as a compared
$60
as compared to like Metal Gear Solid, which I'm sure we'll talk about more later. Like that's a commitment. Like you got to dive into that game and you have to you got to spend hours with that game. You know, but Mario Maker, like if you just want to play like an hour or two every other night, you're gonna get a lot from it. Even just playing a little bit is what I mean.
Right.
Okay.
9.0 from Kyle Hilliard, written in the stone. Since we mentioned Little Big Planet so many times, let's take a step back, go to Media Molecule, what they've been up to lately. Certain game called Tearaway Unfolded.
It's true.
Cork, you check this out. Did you play the Vita one originally?
Yes, I did.
Okay, and now it's out on PS4. What do you think of this whole thing?
I liked it a lot.
All right,
Moving on.
We'll see you next week on the Game Informer show, everybody.
What did you give it? Like an 8 something?
Yeah.
Okay.
An 8 flat. I started it up, and it opened up with like... it actually opened like Metal Gear Solid 4, where it's like faking TV channels.
Yeah, it's actually on our test chamber.
Oh, there we go. But that has to just be a PS4 thing, right? Did they fake TV channels on the Vita version?
No.
Okay, so are there a lot of changes going from the last one to this one?
It's significant changes. Like the biggest one is that, as you know, the Vita has that gimmicky little touchpad on the back of the system.
Gimmicky, but you mean irreplaceable, priceless, invaluable.
I spent so much time with My Little Dungeons, or whatever the hell that first game was.
I spent so many times awkwardly trying to hit my R2 ability in Diablo 3 when I used it as a PS4 controller.
Yeah.
Great.
So we all know that it's the best. And if you remember, like, one of the big gimmicks of Tearaway on that is that if you would touch the back, it would make it look as though your finger had broken through into the world of the game.
Yeah.
And you'd see like a pretty uncannily realistic index finger jutting through the screen,
and it starts motioning for you to come near it as you get closer to the screen.
My screen was just full of like facial imprints. We tried to dive in. It was quite distracting. I'm basically a bird trying to fly through a window. That's where I'm at. Yeah, but you did that, and you would also interact like little enemies. You could kind of stun them by dragging your finger across them and like tap certain things and like fling them toward you, and it was a really cool illusion.
I had a weird thing, speaking of breaking illusions, where I would try to use like my left finger and it would show up as like another right finger.
Oh, did it make you like give you like a phantom pain kind of thing?
It just got my finger backwards. It was so weird. Anyway,
You could pick that, like which handed you were in the beginning of the game. Were you switching
I
hands?
mean, it worked for a while and then it didn't work at all. But I was like, tell us about the changes and how they just sort of compensate for that.
I would like to do that.
Yeah, okay, all right.
So here's the deal. Since you don't have that thing on the PS4 controller, they kind of do a swap where you've got the light bar on the front of it. You kind of use that like a spotlight. In fact, you use it a lot like
So that wasn't in the Vita. Was that like touching the screen in the Vita version?
It's the equivalent of that because you're kind of projecting this light into the world of Tearaway Unfolded. And then if you kind of like the little enemies, the scraps are like hypnotized by it, and you can maneuver them around the level in much the same way as you could like upend them,
right,
poking your finger at them.
This
This
is a
version.
This is a weird game with how stylish it is. It's just like mainlining Media Molecule's dreams. It is amazing that Sony funds this kind of stuff because it is bizarre.
And it is like we talked about it a little bit, but it's really English too. Like the weird like. Oh, if you like wassailing and you like maypoles and you like Green Man and all that kind of weird stuff, docking,
Mind the Gap,
Mind the Gap, old fish and chips.
It's incredibly charming. I'm happy that more people will be able to play Tearaway. I'm curious to hear what people think about how it actually plays at the end of the day, because much like Little Big Planet, where it was oozing charm, I loved the created levels, the open, like the freedom of how crazy you could get with your levels. But then at the end of the day, it's like, I don't really like these platforming physics.
I just kind of listen to this music and look at this art, and that about does it for me.
And Tearaway had a similar thing with me.
I think Tearaway is a better platforming game than Little Big Planet for sure. It's still, and I mentioned that in the review, there are some parts where they were kind of a little too clever for the game itself, where it's like, especially there's like this like sticky glue. It's glue, we'll call it, that and levels, and you can like walk on walls and stuff. And it works really well until the camera doesn't know where you are as it's rotating. So you'll like inadvertently fall off.
Yeah.
Or
I even had problems.
Frustrating. Yeah.
I even had problems with that on the Vita. So it's disappointing that they didn't fix that between those two.
Yeah, the camera is kind of a problem.
The gameplay is like a serviceful means to see all the charming content. Like it's not enough of a barrier to make you put the controller down, but it's not like in itself a joy as much as experiencing the world is.
Yeah.
I feel like with this game, the last reason to buy a Vita is gone as far as like exclusive big things. I guess, can you play? I don't think you can play Golden Abyss, the Uncharted game, on the Vita TV.
Gravity Rush is pretty fun.
There we go. There's one.
But Gravity Rush would actually probably do pretty well with the light bar thing. The way that like maybe aiming your Vita and guiding around the girl from Gravity Rush would be cool with 6-axis. I'm not sure.
So you play a bunch of indie games on your Vita. It's basically just the flight indie game machine at this point?
Or, a really good way to play old PlayStation 1 games since you have both analog sticks
That's
now.
the catch. Like with JRPGs, there's so many JRPGs you can boot up on the Vita. That's the only thing that tempts me. But I'm not going to spend, $200? How much is that thing now?
I don't know. It's also a wonder, like, God, is Sony going to make another portable
No
system?
way.
Like, could it happen?
Way.
Yeah.
Can't happen.
Well, unless it's like a hybrid thing. You know what I mean? Like a PS5 that plugs into your TV and you can take it on the go with you or something.
Yeah.
Take it on the go. I'm on the go pretty frequently.
Yeah, all the time.
I'm in my car a lot. I don't know what to do in that thing.
Oh, God.
I gotta distract myself any way I can.
Hey, Tim, scale of 1 to 10. How excited are you for Media Molecule's Dreams on PS4?
I mean, I don't know.
Give me a number, just a ripe number.
I'll give it a solid 6.
Okay.
Just because like it seems really weird and it seems like a interesting way to like kind of get that like do weird things with that aesthetic. And like if they can present these weird open-ended ways to present this sort of Media Molecule style, and just weave it together. Like, because the idea that I've gathered is like you're kind of connecting different people's dreams, which are like these short film type things you create.
It's clay puppets. Is all I really know for sure about that game.
Right.
Everything they've showed.
If Little Big Planet was handcrafted stuff, arts and crafts stuff, Tearaway was papercraft, and this one's now clay, and it looks cool. I need to know more about it, obviously.
Yeah, I know people are like, well, what's the game there?
I don't know.
I'm excited just to mess around and make. I don't know. There's a part of me that always wants to do more filmmaking type stuff in games. Like I convinced myself I was going to get into like the sorts filmmaker because it seemed like a really powerful tool set and people are doing amazing stuff with it. And I feel the same way about Dreams at this point. We're like, oh, maybe I can make some funky short films that look claymated. That seems kind of cool.
You're not going to do it, is what you're saying.
Well, we'll see. I also told myself I was going to make amazing Little Big Planet levels like everybody else.
Yeah.
You know? And then,
we are proud to announce that you will be able to watch and listen to the Game Informer show in Media Molecule's Dreams.
Are we doing a simul Dreamcast?
yeah, Simul Dreamcast, and
That's
so
right.
you can actually control all four of us and kind of dangle us around.
You're going to need to buy
shake us violently.
You're going to need to buy all the equipment from Inception in order to make this happen. That is a peripheral for this. So
Yeah, but you can look forward to that. But Tearaway Unfolded, worth checking out
Yeah, for sure.
for cutesy fans of 3D
For
platformers.
cutesy fans, and just I wish that the platforming was a little better because the last section, like the last hour or so, was really amazing looking, and then you're like, it doesn't quite have the same effect after I reload this checkpoint.
Yeah, all cutesy looking games should be easy. I agree, Cork.
I don't want to fail in a game ever.
Yeah. Hey,
Make
Kyle.
mine Gone Home. That's what I say.
Kyle, I saw you've been playing some funky little game that you've been excited about for a while.
Yeah.
Lovers in a Dangerous Spacetime.
Yeah, it's an indie game.
Lover.
It's Cork. You would hate it because it's very gorgeous and cute, but it's very difficult. So
Yeah.
just check out.
I have a
now.
mirror
Go
at
ahead
home
and
if I want those.
start your start your nap up. Go ahead and start yawning. I think I saw it at E3 2013, I guess, and I actually kind of campaigned for us to put it on our top 50.
I feel like we've been talking about this game for a while. It's like
Yeah.
almost in that Nuclear Throne level for me where it's like, gosh, is this not out yet?
Yeah, it's been a long Spacetime.
It's because the name you just remember.
It's good.
It's a good name.
But it's cool. It's basically you're like you're controlling a big ship. The ship is 2D and you're kind of platforming within the ship to get to different consoles. So there's like a set of turrets and there's a steering wheel and there's like shields, and you and one other player are kind of jumping around trying to manage all that stuff while making your way through a series of levels.
So it's a shooter.
It reminds me almost.
Yeah, kind of.
Could I
Shooter.
is it almost like a more focused FTL, the side-scrolling game, like where it's like you have to worry about this larger conflict, but you also have to micromanage where you are and what consoles you are
How
in,
happy your lover is.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So the lover thing, by the way, comes in just because it's like the whole theme of the game. Like it has this weird sort of Katamari-esque intro where like all the love from the universe has disappeared, so you have to go get it back to. I know that you're excited about that. Like,
Wait, because Ben Hanson would like to do away with all love in the universe.
Yes.
Oh, I thought you were embracing love.
Yeah.
Oh, jeez.
He wants to embrace it by its neck.
Yeah, like Lenny from A Mice and Men.
But yeah, I'm almost done with it. I'm on like the last level. It's really tough. You can also play by yourself. You can kind of direct an AI partner where
So
to
they
go.
promote self-love.
Exactly. Yeah. And that works pretty well.
You can say that again.
So
What's that, Kyle?
So are you micromanaging
Lovers
crap
in
in the ship, or
Yeah,
are
you're
you just
jumping
running around like, oh, there's people? Like, is it like Geometry Wars except I have to run from one part of the ship
Shut
to
up,
shoot
Ben.
one
Shut up
angle
for
to
just
the
1
other?
second. Describe the controls.
So you are controlling a character and you can jump like in a platformer, like a 2D platformer, and then you're jumping to the steering wheel to move the ship where you want it to go.
Okay.
And then when enemies show up, you want to jump and get on it. You want to like jump over to the next room to get on a turret, and then you can jump back and get on the steering wheel.
And that all uses just like the analog stick and stuff like that.
Yeah,
And
like
then when
three
you
levels on the ship, is that right?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple different ships with where it's rearranged in different ways.
Okay.
So seems cool so far.
do you think it'd be fun to play with? I mean, you said it's really hard. So if you wanted a co-op buddy, would they have to be like pretty good at these kinds of games, or do you think it's more accessible than that if you know what you're doing?
Yeah, I mean, if you're playing with someone who is not as good as you at video games, you can kind of take the bulk of the work and kind of say, hey, you just handle the shields, and I'll try to take care of everything else or something like that. But the best case scenario is you guys are both pretty good at the
Would
game.
that be fun just to manage the shields?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
It is, because everything is important, if that makes sense.
I saw you playing. It looked like you were just being assaulted by projectiles on all sides, so that whoever's manning the shields had to sort of compensate and move the shield in that direction while the other person was running around to another console.
Yeah, like I don't think any, like, because it kind of reminded me of Affordable Space Adventures.
Yeah.
But the thing about that game was, like, not all the jobs were fun or interesting, because if you're the person who was driving ended up having the most fun. But here, like, every job you are contributing quite a bit, and they're important and interesting to do. So
I think I'm on board. What is this out for?
Xbox One and PC, Mac, Linux.
Thank you. Oh, thank God for Linux. All right. Got it. Hey, Jeff Cork.
Yes.
I know it came out a while ago, but we haven't talked about it on this podcast yet. And Matt Burtz is out of the office this week, and he ended up reviewing it for us. But you've been playing a lot of Mad Max, is that right?
Mm-hmm. Playing some Mad Max. I like it.
Is it worth playing now?
What do you mean now?
Now that Metal Gear is out?
There's an inevitable comparison that's happening here, where even subconsciously, I think that people have been comparing Mad Max to Metal Gear, and they both deliver super different types of open world games. Like Mad Max seems like it's way more traditional of like the current open world structure with car combat, and Metal Gear is like sandbox dream fantasy stealth game.
It's weird to call Metal Gear like an evolution of open world, but just such a weird different take on it.
Right.
And Mad Max seems rooted in kind of open world design from 3 years ago.
Yeah. So you've been hopping between the two a lot?
Yeah.
How's that been?
It's interesting.
Yeah.
I kind of want to knock out one of the war boys and have a guy in a gyrocopter come and yank him out of the off the ground for me, but that does not happen. I think that it's difficult going back and forth, because you do have the strongholds in Mad Max that you kind of upgrade, and that's you get benefits from that. But boy, the way that Mother Base is handled in Metal Gear is really pretty good.
A little more customization. But are you enjoying Mad Max? I know you're really excited about it.
Yeah.
Because 3 of us went on that cover story trip to Sweden not too long ago to cover this game.
Yeah. I've played up through where we got to play through like the beginning of the game, essentially, when we were there. And I've kind of gotten up through that point, and I really do enjoy. There's something about Mad Max that, like, just being in that sort of quiet, placid desert world and just kind of minding yourself and driving around and getting scrap. There's something kind of therapeutic about it.
Yeah.
And I think in Mad Max, moment to moment, there's more to do. There's more to, like, hit on your marker. Like, I'm going to go get that. I'm going to go scavenge that. Every square inch of that world, there's more to do than in Metal Gear. Whereas Metal Gear is just, in my opinion, you could run around and, Fulton out all the goats and stuff like that. But you're going after specific missions, sometimes to the same place over and over again. But the way you approach those is where all the variety comes in. So they deliver super different like experiences, and they kind of appeal to me for different reasons of why I like open world games.
I agree with you 100%. Because like Mad Max is more of a let me come at it a different way. Like with Metal Gear, like if I come across a settlement or something, I see guys and I kind of try to figure out the best way to strategically get in there and do my thing.
Yeah.
Mad Max is just like, oh, there they are. I'm just going to drive my car up to them and just start punching dudes. I mean, later on, that's not a super great move because, the defenses become stronger and you're like, okay, I should be sneaky. But Mad Max, you could play it way more offensively just because you're not tranking people or anything like that. You're just a killing machine.
So it's a nice outlet for that. And also your collectibles and just slowly expanding this open world.
Yeah.
But since you've seen so much of the game, we covered it so much, what are some of the big surprises now that you actually have your hands on the full thing?
The biggest surprise for me is that they did not make a bigger fuss about the direct ties between the movie.
Fury Road specifically. Yeah, I booted it up last night, and even in the beginning, they used like, oh, witness me while I do this. It's like, I don't think that's in the other Mad Max movies.
No,
the whole witness.
No.
Okay.
And then like the fact that Scrotus is Immortan Joe's son.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and it's only in the character profile. Like if you read the bio file, that's where it says that. But it is not.
What the hell?
It is not mentioned
what
anywhere.
The actual hell?
Well, look, I think all of it comes from George Miller's mind, and going from George Miller's mind to Avalanche over in Sweden, I think there's a lot that's kind of lost in that communication channel. And so it's such a murky lore to begin with, and to have that then once removed, I wonder how much they were changing after the movie came out? Like, 'cause it would be easy to change that text there.
It's just confusing, is all it is. And I mean, you haven't beaten Mad Max, right?
No.
So we don't know how much that's going to be fleshed out and realize how integral that is to the story. But
Well, I talked to Bertz about it afterwards. He's like, yeah, that's the only time that it's
the Morton Joe thing, and then there's the Gastown reference as well.
Right,
like
in the
you go
movie.
to Gastown in the game. You just see Gastown in the movie.
But they hang a hard left.
Yeah,
right before
exactly.
Gastown.
Turns out that's where the movie takes off. So
Yeah, it's weird because then in the game, I mean, if they're that close to each other, in the game's world, gas is everywhere. And the whole thing is like, oh man, Mad Max got to go to get to the fields of solace or whatever.
Plains of Silence.
Thank you. By getting all this gas. Only one place to go, you got to go to Gastown.
Yep.
Whereas in the movie, it's like in theory, they aren't too far away and everything was still pretty scarce.
That's not quite the premise. He needs to get a car. He needs to make his car so he can get there. The fuel is really not the huge problem.
Well, they mentioned it, though.
He needs a V8 engine because, those are notoriously fuel efficient.
Right,
Yes.
right. But they do
He's
mention that
really-
he needs all the gas to get there
really?
with this new car. Yeah.
He is weirdly adamant about that V8 engine. Like, he has a perfectly functional car, and he's like, no, you need to go get me a V8 right now.
I want to watch the meter just go to E in real time.
But if we could we would need that sort of horsepower to navigate that kind of terrain, I think.
I guess so.
Can we get serious about this Mad Max thing, guys?
Guys.
But as far as connecting it to George Miller's world, I remember Avalanche said that Scrota's character came from George Miller. They kind of got a couple hints along the long development of that game of here's kind of what George Miller's thinking. But I bet they didn't even know that Fury Road connects to Gastown. Do you think? Otherwise, they probably would have made a bigger deal of pointing out that oh yeah, Gastown's in this game. It's also in the upcoming film Fury Road.
Here's the thing: all we can do is speculate because you don't know how much they're actually allowed to say in the game. Maybe there was limitations, and maybe they couldn't talk about certain things. You don't know we don't know about the business side of that.
Right.
We can't assume that if Avalanche knew everything that George Miller had in mind, they could have absolutely implemented all of it, and that it's all communication. I think there's probably a lot of business red tape that throws up in the face of that.
Yeah.
Well, also, apparently George Miller didn't even write a script for Fury Road. He just drew storyboards. So maybe he, like you're saying, maybe he just literally didn't know.
Maybe that makes
he
sense.
just didn't have answers for them because a lot of that movie was just they figured it out on the set.
Fury Road will be the best movie to have playing on all of the backs of airplane seats. Because
absolutely.
you just don't need to listen to it or hear what people are saying to actually enjoy it.
Yeah, George Miller actually, he talked about that in an interview. I forget if it was in the making of, I watched the making ofs for Fury Road. But he was talking about how he was taking a lot of inspiration from Hitchcock, and Hitchcock saying that your film should be able to play in Japan without subtitles, and people should be able to enjoy it. And he just dove in deep on that message with Fury Road in terms of you don't need to follow the story too much. You can look at the dumb thing.
Hey, real quick, just an aside, isn't it weird the Blu-ray of Fury Road does not have the black and white version that George Miller was saying is such a big deal?
What?
Really?
I didn't know anything about
They
this.
have the Mist style, perfect, black and white.
Well, he was saying that that's the way that he wanted to see that, and that the black and white is the way to go.
That's insane, considering how colorful that movie is.
But he wanted a black and white version of the movie.
Yeah, and apparently he's working on some kind of transfer of that.
I mean, with the Mist, they did it. I know I talk about the Mist a lot, but
we should really bring Jeff someday in to
there
talk
was a
about the
special edition, and then that's when they ended up releasing it with the Mist.
Yeah.
Maybe it'll be you got to save some of that stuff for the
special Blu-ray, not just the regular Blu-ray.
Yeah.
What's weird about that, I wonder,
Peasants
because
have.
Kyle mentioned, he had those storyboards for years and years, and you can see the office is just there's a whole room lined with these black and white storyboards. So I wonder if it's just because he stared at those so much that he's like, I would like to see the film moving in black and white, just like those storyboards.
Interesting. Yeah,
Interesting.
I wonder how that would have looked. Because I know, when I was trying to we're spending too much time on this, desperately see the Mist in black and white, I was looking online to find out what the best version of that, and people are just like, why don't you just adjust the color on your TV and turn it down to black and white, you dummy, do that. And I'm like, why don't I do that? And then I looked it up, it's well, of course, because it's even within shades of gray, it's color corrected just how they want it and stuff like that.
Yeah, they really crushed the blacks and try to make it, not completely Sin City, obviously, but yeah, they make the whites as white as they can be, blacks as black as they can be.
But we were talking about
OxyClean.
a movie that plays well with characters that don't talk that often. Well, I might be talking about a segue into Metal Gear Solid.
The big boys are back in town.
Big boys.
With old Big Boss.
That's
Big
the song
boys.
that my helicopter plays. The big boys are back in town.
But they have to get the big out there really fast. The big boys are back in town. The big boys are back in town.
Yep, it's pretty great.
Okay, we've all been playing a fair amount of Metal Gear.
It's so good.
A lot.
Okay,
it's
it's
maybe
fun.
it's one of the best games of the year.
You're super into it so far.
I had a moment last night where I was playing it and I was like, oh wait, this is competing in my mind with Bloodborne for the most fun, and I think about when I'm not playing it, and it has a way tighter progression loop than Bloodborne did. And oh man, it's just the loop of just like, hey, there's new stuff I can unlock and upgrade, and now like the way they just sort of. I just last night unlocked the ability to do like the away missions, like deployed combat missions, and it's so trivially easy to do and like manage and stuff. But just knowing that like there's this extra layer that's going on when I'm not playing, and that they bring back cash for me is just. I've always enjoyed that in games. Final Fantasy Tactics is an example. Peace Walker, obviously.
I haven't gotten into that level of it. I'm really enjoying my time with it, but it's still. I don't feel like there's a lot of like strategy and micromanaging that I'm doing back at Mother Base. Maybe it's my own fault for not diving into it too much. But like even capturing and Fultoning guards, like I got the upgrade for my binoculars so I can see like their skill level. And it's like, oh, it's a lot of E's and D's. It's not like there's suddenly an A guy wandering around. So I just still Fulton everybody. There's not much.
Fulton everybody. That's what you should do.
Yeah.
But I'm just throwing it all into this pot back home, and then numbers increase somewhere. I don't feel like I'm really like getting that Pokemon aspect of, oh, I need this specific thing.
Not yet. But here's an example. Is like, yeah, early on they're all E's and D's, except for maybe a few like prisoners. Like you go and get a prisoner. They're usually good in something. Or, you interrogate a guy. Like our specialist is over here. And then maybe he'll have like a C or a B in something. I Fulton everybody just to get him off the battlefield still. But last night I want to upgrade and finally get my tranquilizer sniper rifle because that was a huge part of how I want to play. And I need to have way better, the medical platform needs to be way better. And so I was going towards the this one part of the map that's like, I was going on this one mission to sort of exfiltrate a very specific scientist, and it just turned out a lot of those guards there, maybe it's by the proximity and what type of base it is, but they had higher medical stats. And so I was kind of beelining and making these specific sort of ventures for these guys that were really good with medical so I could get my tranquilizer. And that's where I started to feel that Pokemon aspect and just finding those people in the field and kind of get this thrill where it's like, and what a thrill, to go after these specific guys and know that they're going back and then click into Mother Base. And in Peace Walker, I was way more hands-on with like deliberating where people went, and I just hit the auto assign now. And I finally went in yesterday and I was like, how are you doing with this auto assign? Because you'll notice that you'll do auto assign and it'll say you'll have downgraded in certain facilities because they have to like one of your facilities or one of your platforms or departments will have to take a downgrade because if that guy moves out of it, even if he's better at the other one, the one he's moving from is going to downgrade. But it's doing a good job. I double checked it last night.
So I don't need to worry about any of that. I just Fulton guys and they'll go to a good place.
No, you have to hit auto assign. You need to go into resource management and click the R3 button, and then it'll say auto assign. You need to absolutely hit that button.
Oh, really? So everyone's just sitting in a lobby right now?
Probably. They could all be
There's
in the
hundreds of men there.
Yeah, they're all just like reading old highlights issues.
Or reading the Game Informer issue from Metal Gear Solid 3.
That's right.
In there, yeah.
Do you have, because what I've been doing is when I do that, I do the waiting room and then I do all staff. Am I just
that's right.
do them both? Okay.
All staff, because it includes the waiting room. The way that you would not, if you didn't want to do all staff, because maybe you were working on a project or working towards a project that was gated by, a certain level, and you didn't want to even temporarily downgrade one of your bases, you would just go to the waiting room, and then that would deploy them into the specific, already established departments without disrupting them.
Gotcha.
So what are you guys doing as far as infiltrating these bases? What's your strategy? Because mine has just been like this slow tide of Fultoning people slowly taking over every station.
That's right.
Yeah. Is that basically it? Are you guys...
I like circle the drain.
Okay.
And I'm I work from the outside and I just kind of rotate, getting closer and closer to like the center objective or the middle.
You're marking everybody, right? First,
of course.
Everyone you can.
I mean, it's fun, but I don't know if there's other strategies. I don't know if other people are just treating it like you can't Fulton people and just treating it like an old Metal Gear game, just trying to sneak past all these guys, or if some people are just shooting their way through these things.
That's what the people who are shooting their way through, I wonder if they're having any fun at all ultimately, or are they like, this Mother Base stuff does not make any sense.
Oh, right.
There's nothing that's happening.
Dust Bowl and the Mother Base.
It's Shalas is getting really upset. You need to bring some people back, man. What are you doing?
I was talking with Joe about this, and it's one of my favorite things, and it's something I knew. Like, ever since last year, we played Ground Zeroes at Koji Pro when it existed. And I remember I was, like, so intimidated by the concept of an open-world Metal Gear game. I'm like, well, I could be approached from all directions. I don't know what their line of sight is, or their peripheral, or, how far their vision extends. So I was, like, hyper careful and just crawling on my belly throughout the entire thing pretty much. And I knew that when Phantom Pain came out, I'm like, I'll never end up being this cautious. You still have to be pretty cautious, but it's just this game of getting used to how far away people can see you, how true it is when you break line of sight, like how far someone will come to kind of follow you, how like when you knock to distract someone.
Also, like seeing
how
far they can see at night versus daytime, how much they can hear.
I think that will more directly just influence how you go through a base and like shoot everyone in the head with a tranquilizer dart. But they do a good job. Last night, I was noticing that, and actually I think Ocelot or Miller called this out where they're like, well, these guys are wearing helmets because you're shooting them all with a tranquilizer dart in the head. So it like halves your sort of target. You can still shoot them and get a headshot, but you got to make sure you don't hit anywhere in the helmet.
And Joe was saying that apparently if you do too many missions at night, then people have night vision goggles.
Yep.
So now after that, I've been switching it up because I love a good night mission because they cannot see shit.
It's good, but yeah, the night vision goggles, those guys haven't been as rough as I thought. I think they're just comparable to a guy that can see you during the day.
Okay.
If I had to guess, it almost seems like their peripheral is worse, but they're easier to spot at night because their eyes glow red.
Something I've just been thinking about, when those guys look for you with the flashlights, I wonder if you could shoot their flashlight out. I'm going to have to try that.
Oh, man.
Maybe. Yeah, I read your piece that you did with Reiner where you have a piece on the website where you go back and forth, kind of talk about your impressions.
It's called Editor Showdown.
And there we go. And you were talking about how you can't stop thinking about this game, and you keep thinking of little strategies to do in the off time. I mean, you seem to be diving into this game maybe and falling more in love than anybody else in the office. Tim, I
am super on board with
compare
this game.
your love though.
Compare our love.
Did you get no spoilers in this podcast?
Yeah, absolutely.
Listen, that's got to come with a certain caveat. Is that I don't remember last time I've seen people more sensitive about spoilers for a game to the point where
with good reason.
I tweeted about like
Infinite.
And I'm going to say that like I tweeted about like a cassette where BioShock's up there. A cassette that a character explained his name and where the etymology of his name was. And someone on Twitter was upset with me for saying that you will find out the meaning of this character's name in this game. And
that might be a stretch. We're not going to say anything that's not in the videos.
Right. So basically, I got to a really it was just a side ops, but the side ops will be highlighted like yellow if they're really important.
Yeah, I haven't had one of those yet.
Did you do like the first one of those, Jeff? It's where I mentioned like you have to go and rescue someone or exfiltrate someone.
Yes.
I did that mission, and it was like a turning point for me in that game. Like it was so bonkers and such a surprise. Just both in terms of the character interactions and just the way that mission concluded. It was really intense, really fun. It made me appreciate like on a design level and a development level, like what they pulled off technically during that part. But yeah, last night I had to do the other mission, the other side ops. No, it was a main mission where you have to like destroy as many tanks or heavy artillery.
That's a really
within,
fun one.
Like 13 minutes, because it's like when you have a clock, when there's a ticking clock and it's saying like, hey, you got to do all these, you have to take out all these guys. And it's like, okay, well, I haven't really used rocket launchers yet. I'm gonna probably have to use a lot of C4. I used, was it your trick, Jeff? You're talking about like just parking D-Horse in the middle of a road so that they stop and start honking at it. But they didn't know that I had been watching their convoy and perfectly placing C4 about the length where I thought they'd stop. And they're just like, honk, honk, shoo, shoo.
D-Horse, no!
Yeah, D-Horse.
Well, D-Horse will be a necessary collateral.
Stands for dynamite.
Yeah. Anyway, that was a lot of fun, really intense. But it was like, also, I died on it a lot, but I was still having fun.
Yeah, that mission, like I went and replayed it immediately after like succeeding, because I was like, I bet I can get this other one, but I just didn't know the route. So
yeah, I was also worried about this game after Ground Zeroes because I like obviously the controls in Ground Zeroes. There's a lot to like in that game, but I never really felt comfortable in the stealth. I always felt so exposed, and maybe just it felt so new. But I think the problem there, going from Ground Zeroes to Phantom Pain, is I didn't have that much room to breathe. I'm not going from wide open wilderness to a small little base, and I can slowly work my way up from one edge instead of Ground Zeroes where it feels like you're in the middle of a small city and they're going to be all over you, which just makes you feel kind of gross and exposed all the time.
Well, you can't just run away. There's a few LZs and stuff. And
yeah, exactly. But I've enjoying the stealth so much more in Phantom Pain than I thought I would.
It's like alarmingly, maybe disappointingly easy to just get the hell out of Dodge. You know what I mean? And it feels like the repercussions for getting caught beyond your grade aren't crazy stringent. But
I like that though, because then you don't have to leave the game.
Yeah.
There's so many times in past Metal Gears where I'd be like, well, I'm going to quit and start over. Where I like being able to just kind of run away for a while. I mean, I guess you kind of look at it as like an exploit, but I just appreciate that's like an option,
Speaking of options, this is a pro tip, is if you finished like a side ops and you want to get across the map, like open up your options menu and go to the, like you can just straight go away to the what is it, like air control center they call it, and without having to like call a plane or a helicopter, get in, go over there, or hoof it. Literally.
But do you lose progress with that? Because I've heard that tip too, but I'm still confused exactly how it works.
As far as I've seen, once there's a check mark in the side ops list, you're good to go and do that shortcut. But yeah,
I've never done that. I've just been running.
I mean, that's fun too.
Like a maniac.
But now that I have D-Dog as well now. I just got him last night.
Best.
And it seemed like I was about to get quiet, but like it seems like sometimes you have to do certain missions in order to unlock certain things. D-Dog, I'm not sure what the stipulation is there, because you get him as a puppy. Everyone's seen that, and it's just like an amount of time needs to pass. I'm not sure what the limitation is there, but I got him, and that's really changed the way I play too. One, because I get around slower. But two, because he's adorable and he marks all the guys for you.
Yep.
And super useful with that. And I haven't even like sicked him on anybody yet.
How did this game happen? What do you think is going on? It's such a unique take on open world games, but go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think it started during a different era of, well, one, Konami.
Right.
And two, like game design, like these kinds of huge AAA, like risks don't happen that often anymore, and
it's so big. This game is gigantic, like, and not just world map, but as far as missions and content in there.
It seems like Metal Gear Solid 4 was kind of going in that direction, because remember, like the big
second area was
because the big bullet point was like it's this giant battlefield, and you can walk around, and like there's a war going on. You can choose who you're going to side with. It seems like the ambition was there to kind of go in that direction. Whether or not the execution necessarily, it followed through on that.
Right. It's all pretty linear.
But there's a lot of proof of concept with Peace Walker too. Just like the Pokemon aspect of Fultoning everyone.
Mother base.
Like Fultoning people in Peace Walker was already one of the most satisfying things I'd ever done in a Metal Gear game. And I had when we talked with Kojima, and it was like, yeah, you'll be able to Fulton whoever you want out. And he's just said it so nonchalantly, and like, I had the rest of an interview to do, but I was just like, oh my God, this is all I want. And I'm like, is this going to be as good as I think? Or will the Fultoning system be sort of like, yeah, you can do this, but really it's about the story and the missions and stuff like that and the stealth. Like, no. I mean, this is just kidnap everyone, the game. You know what I mean?
Tim's dream come true.
It's really, but there's another thing that I've been thinking about, which is the fact that we got a question in the other week about sort of just like, like, would these kinds of games be fun if, Nathan Drake and Lara Croft weren't actually just murdering everybody? It's like, think about a little bit like what this game is as a commentary, where most people are tranquilizing and safely rescuing everyone so that they can, I know there's probably some behind the scenes coercion with Ocelot to get people to join the Diamond Dogs.
They explained that in one of the tapes, which I really appreciated. Talking about like they all know that Big Boss is the greatest soldier of all time, but they don't know what he looks like. And so once they go back to the base, and then they all see that like, oh, I'll be working for Big Boss. Oh, F yeah. That's why they all get excited about it.
Yeah.
I was talking to Reiner about this morning, and maybe I'm giving Kojima too much credit for it, but you could also look at that as like maybe a sort of a statement or an idea about the whole idea of freelance armies, and about how you can kind of coerce a soldier wherever they need to go. I mean, that was kind of the whole theme of like Metal Gear Solid 4, PMCs and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So
that's true. And then also, to be fair, I'm not trying to say that this is some sort of revolutionary thing. Almost all of the Metal Gear games since Metal Gear Solid for sure have graded you based on whether you were seen or killed anybody, and you've always been rewarded for being like as leave no trace as possible. And yeah, it's really fun to know that most people are playing it with a tranquilizer and taking that route. Obviously, it's in your benefit for the mother base stuff, but it's also just so much more interesting. I feel bad when everything's gone to hell and I got to switch over to. I haven't really changed my loadout. I still have like that silenced SMG with but now I have a red dot on it. And it's just so good. But once I see people's helmets flying off and like the blood going, I'm just like, oh man, like I really screwed this up.
Yeah. Like the tranquilizer weapons, it reminds me of Far Cry, where I went like crossbow exclusively.
Okay.
I really enjoyed that. But the like upgrade path was pretty limited there. And I feel the same way with like and I obviously have a lot of research to do in that game in Metal Gear, so I haven't followed non-lethal weaponry as far as I can go. But it seems like I open up, hey, these new things are available, and it's like boring pistol, boring machine gun, boring shotgun, boring shotgun with slightly better stats. And I'm just like, I'm scanning. I'm like, okay, this one stuns. I'll do that.
I am disappointed.
ZZZ, I like that a lot.
There weren't more options for tranquilizing and stuff right up front.
But what else would you want? Like the sniper trank is nice. Outside of that,
I mean, maybe like I guess there are the stun bullets. There's rubber bullets, which I haven't gone into a lot because I chews through my suppressor really fast. But they're the stun options. It seems like I can't tell a huge difference between tranquilizing someone and stunning someone. Save for stunning, it's. I think I confirmed this last night. Like if you run over someone who's stunned or accidentally knock into them with something, it seems like they get up faster.
I wonder if it's random when they get up, because I've had some guys stunned that have been out for a super long time, and other times it's like I turn around and they're awake again.
How are you stunning them though? Are you doing like
CQC and the choke out thing?
If you do two, like it talks about it, one of the tips. If you do like a sequence where you're getting a guy and then getting the next guy and getting the next guy, the longer the chain, each subsequent takedown, that guy will get knocked out for longer.
What a weird detail.
That's awesome.
I'm trying to think that's a weird detail in a Metal Gear Solid.
It's kind of a weird
There might be some
detail.
weird details in this Metal Gear Solid game.
There's a whale on fire.
I want to talk about that in a bit.
There's this one section of the map that's basically like this big crater and this sort of like cave, like ruins that overlooks.
Oh my
it
God,
and stuff
that's
like
the best place.
It's really cool, and
I just did that last night actually.
Yeah.
It's also a super claustrophobic, maybe like one of the more ground zero-y areas because there's only one way to get out of there fast. And I was looking for this one guy. I've noticed this one thing. I have a couple gripes with the game, and I don't want to sidetrack this too much.
Hear it.
But one, they're minor.
nap,
One is
Jeff.
that like it'll tell you that you have new cassettes and side ops, and you don't actually have that many in your menus. I don't know how to fix that.
Well, are you sure you aren't seeing just notifications for like the music tracks and stuff like that?
I mean, I've listened to those multiple times, and it's
No,
still
even like the stuff that isn't like the pop music, but stuff where it's like Afghan Lullaby number 6.
Yeah, I've gone through all that stuff.
Okay.
So I don't know, but the side ops things is a deal. Maybe I'll go through it more carefully. But the other thing was like I'll interrogate someone and like, all right, we've marked our specialist or the target on your map, and looking at the map, it can be really hard to tell what they've targeted. There's so many icons, but also it's not directly obvious. Like, hey, where's that prisoner I need to exfiltrate out of here? But regardless, in order just to find who it was, I just started Fultoning everyone I could find. Yep. And I had knocked everyone out, and I was trying to clean up. And then I'd be across that crater, and I saw someone coming too. And like, there's these amazing moments in this game where it's like, I have to make a snap decision. I don't know what I'm going to do until I have to do it. And I just full on did that crazy big boss sprint. And just like, as I was sprinting, switched over to my bionic arm and did the whoosh, and just across the crater, sprinted to him as he's like woozy, like, oh, what happened?
He barely opens his eyes. He sees a metal
just
fist.
a bionic fist into his face, and he goes flying. And I'm like, that was a close one.
I'm gonna tie a balloon around your waist.
Yes.
and send you into space.
Goodbye, soldier.
Yep.
So that's a big thing is, I mean, Joe on the podcast 2 weeks ago was talking about story takes a backseat. And so I think I was embracing that, or kind of bracing for it in the worst possible way, because I like story in my Metal Gear games. But I was completely blown away by that intro sequence. I know we had seen it years ago, like the highlights in the first Phantom Pain trailer, but actually getting to play through that extended sequence, I absolutely adored it.
It was great.
And I don't want to spoil anything outside of that, but I had so much more style and made so many smart decisions in that. Even stuff like where it's basically a cutscene, but it's one where Snake's getting damaged, and then like the low health sound from Metal Gear will start playing in the cutscene just to reinforce like how deadly and dangerous this situation is. Because it turns out a lot of people died in that intro.
I've checked I had ended up checking my expectations so thoroughly about the story stuff, and I think I did myself a favor and checked them super hard, because like this side ops I was talking about with Cork is like, where I'm just like, this is in this game. And like, I'm not trying to overhype it. I'm being vague enough, I think. But it's just refreshing. Like, well, what's around the corner? You know, what else do I have to look forward to? I soak up every time that like Ocelot and Miller on the same like screen. Like, I love Miller's look. And like, I think Troy Baker has done an awesome job with Ocelot.
Disagree.
Which like, it's kind of weird. I was really kind of pensive about it at first, but like, also they kind of made like Ocelot kind of like a dreamboat. Like, you know, his eyes are a little bit too big.
I'm
like,
okay with him being a dreamboat, but I'm really annoyed with his voice. Like in the first trailers, the first time we heard Ocelot, I think it was him going like, "Let the legend come back to life." It's like, oh, cool, that sounds like Ocelot. I'm glad he's nailing it. The rest of the time, Troy Baker is just, he sounds like maybe 20% Ocelot and then 80% Joel from The Last of Us. It just sounds like a Southern dude. I absolutely hate it.
I don't think there's any Joel in there.
There's a lot of just pure Southern Ocelot, and it doesn't make any sense.
I think it works. I feel like he's a decent halfway point between Ocelot in Snake Eater and Ocelot in MGS.
I could not disagree with you harder. I think he's way off on his own goddamn island.
I think keep with it, because there's parts of this game that have had to grow on me, and I like Ocelot from Metal Gear Solid 1, like, is maybe like my favorite Metal Gear Solid character. I feel kind of precious about him. Like I loved like the whole like Colt, not like
you're a gun
1911 or whatever, like Colt action.
One
army,
more take, Ocelot.
The single best pistol ever made. Whatever. I loved that stuff, and so I felt like really protective when I found out it was Troy Baker. But I think he's done. I think it's
wildly consistent.
I'm kind of with Hanson. Like if this game was presented to me and I didn't know that was Ocelot, there's no I would have assumed that was Ocelot. Following Metal Gear Solid 3, like he just seems like a completely different character or person.
100%.
Ben, I'm happy to announce that Bungie and Konami and I have partnered to replace all of Ocelot's VO with my own personal Ocelot.
You couldn't get Nolan North?
Colt dog.
Pretty great, Snake.
But talking about that disconnect with characters, that is my biggest problem with the game so far. And again, I'm really enjoying it. But, I mean, it's partly Kiefer, partly Ocelot. I just feel like these aren't the characters I fell in love with. And feels
like a new cast.
I've been fully in favor of getting rid of Hater. Like, I love Hater, but it's like I normally don't have a problem with changing things up. But God, I really miss him so much. I feel like I'd be so much more connected to Big Boss's adventure if I could just have that thread going through. But even real quick, like even when Ocelot meets Big Boss in Phantom Pain here in the beginning, and you've seen it in the trailers and whatnot, he like even introduces himself where he's like, "I'm Ocelot, Big Boss." Like, yeah, I know you guys have been on a whole adventure together.
Yeah, we had that thing on the helicopter.
Yeah,
we
I had to
juggled
pick something
pistols together.
Exactly.
So even though Kiefer's performance and Troy Baker's performance have grown on me a bit, I would trade it all away just for the consistency of having Hater back as Big Boss, maybe even saying less. Like, I would trade that all away. Like, can you imagine? I don't know how this would ever happen, but like, imagine if the PC version, if someone got Hater to like redub everything and there was a mod that was just like Hater, just double middle fingers to like Konami and just
that'd be so good.
Just a freelance thing. Like what could you do? I guess Konami's pretty aggressive about getting unofficial stuff off.
But Hater's like, I'm just gonna record it on my iPhone.
Yeah. That'd be a lot of work to do
in the middle of this conversation.
Well, to be fair, most of the time you hear that guy is through the cassettes anyway, where it's already filtered and sounds like crap. Yeah. Okay. I also didn't have a problem with them taking, Kojima's out there saying, oh, we're taking kind of a Mad Max approach with Big Boss this time around. He's kind of a silent protagonist. And I could wrap my head around that because then I could be like, well, he's been through so much. Like the hospital really rocked him mentally. Maybe that's understandable. But then he talks so much in those cassette tapes. It just makes for this weird discrepancy that drives me insane.
Maybe he's camera shy. Once the player's camera is there pointed at him, he's just.
But Kyle also had the great point of, why is Big Boss recording all these conversations, then playing it back for himself when he's running around in Afghanistan?
The idea is like if you're getting these tapes and they're giving you background, it's like, oh, you're going on this mission here. Instead of me telling you now, take these tapes.
You were
and
there though.
It's like you were there listening to the conversation. So he's just like, just really full of himself. Like, oh yeah, I sound really good right here.
All right, here's a counterpoint. And this is dumb justification of the universe, but like, if you're going to write a feature or a story or something like that, you might want to listen to that interview again just to make sure you're way up on all the details when you're trying to kill certain people and rescue certain people. Maybe you want to be extra careful. Oh, I want to talk about one other thing.
Yeah.
When it says that you should like eliminate an enemy captain or something like that, does Fultoning count?
Yes, because then they basically
that's not clear.
Yeah, you can do that, and then Ocelot's basically like, oh yeah, we're gonna take him to some black site place to saw his head off. We got it from here.
Really?
It's basically like we'll
kill him anyway.
Oh yeah, he's dead. You just don't have to do it.
Oh, okay. Because like I went on this one mission and it was one of the moments where I realized I loved the game, but was kind of confused. I'm like, eliminate. I want to Fulton everybody. If he's a captain, he's probably really high ranking. But I climbed up this cliff on D-Horse and got out, pulled out my sniper rifle. I only have a lethal one, and I started marking the place. And I was like, they're really generous when you're marking people.
Yeah.
And I was a little above the captain. I took my binoculars and went down a little bit. I'm like, oh, red beret, huh? That's your target, Snake. I'm like, all right. I haven't even gone into the base. I'm actually like 100 yards from it and pulled up my sniper rifle, had perfect line of sight, and just shot the captain. And it was just like mission complete, like S immediately.
Wow.
And it was just like, all right, that's that. I'll, just walk away from here. And it was one of those things where it's like, I guess it was just designed for me to do that. I feel weird because I should have Fultoned him, but at the same time, I feel awesome.
Yeah.
I have a quick question because we're talking about the intro still. Is there a way to get through that intro without murdering anybody? Do you guys know?
Like the intro sequence?
Yeah, because you
I
are
don't
handed a
think
gun.
so.
At
I think
some
you're like
point.
locked in that room and you have to shoot those guys when it's.
Because I was already like I guess maybe it's because I'd been playing so much Ground Zeroes and already kind of getting in that mode of like I'm not going to kill anybody. Where I was immediately like I was just like, can I use something else? Can I throw away this gun that you gave
throw
me?
it to make a distraction?
Just use it to knock him out. Or
It
something?
broke your own personal narrative,
Yeah.
but I don't think that counted for anything really.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's weird because I feel really gross when I kill people. I feel like I like did the dumb guy thing, the worst way to solve a problem when
You're
I
a
resort to
Neanderthal
killing
now.
someone. Yeah, whereas with Mad Max, it's like super satisfying and fun. But yeah, with Metal Gear, I feel like it's a personal failure every time I use like a regular weapon.
I think it's because of Mother Base. It's like that incentive, you know, of like building that base. Like you feel like you don't feel like you're killing someone to get them out of the way to complete your mission. You feel like you're destroying resources.
I had a mission too where it was like, we recommend you take like a missile launcher with this. I'm like, nope. I have not even researched that because I'm above a missile launcher.
I want to have a
Ocelot's
Nerf one I could use.
Ocelot's like, you really want to take this with you? I'm telling you. And Big Boss is like, no.
I want to talk to you
I'm not
about
doing
that missile launcher thing, but like getting back to Kyle's thing and your thing, Cork, is like I think there's part of it that's like I'm kind of like hamstringing myself by not building up my mother base, but like there's something objectively like sloppy and not clean about like spilling blood and starting to kill people and moving a dead body instead of moving like a sleeping person into a stall. There's just something about it that like once you have the contrast up, just not killing people feels like the right thing to do.
But it's also one of those brilliant mechanics, like the whole mother base thing, faulting people. It's one of those brilliant mechanics in video games, and I compare it to Driver in San Francisco in terms of the brilliant coma
As
mechanic.
most would, I'm sure.
But it's one that you can't really rip off. Like other games can't be like, well, we'll have a mother base now, and you'll strap balloons to them. Like it's such a quirky, unique thing.
I don't think so, man. I think like you look at stuff like Shadow of Mordor was going in a direction, and like I wouldn't be surprised if like Monolith found some way to like just double down on the bolstering. I guarantee. No, I don't guarantee it, but I think I think we're going to see more stuff like this. I think that this is like
turning people to your side.
One of those next big things where Monolith was getting there, but it was disorganized. And whereas the mother base stuff is just like to the T as organized as it can get, I think.
So Uncharted 5, Drake's just going to sit down and have a chat with everybody and be like, come on, go on adventures with Sully and I.
Maybe. I think that open world games, it might be tough to do outside of an open world game, but it's not impossible.
Well, toward Hanson's point, just for a second, Peace Walker's been out since
2010.
2010. I mean, and that was like really well regarded, and people really love Fultoning in that, and that hasn't really infected any other games.
But there wasn't any real direct representation of that in the field, I don't think. And, you know, Peace Walker, that was mostly just menus and stuff like that. Whereas with Shadow of Mordor, you know, you had your guys show up with Phantom Pain now. You know, you Fulton stuff, and you
have a place you can visit. There's
exactly.
A location.
It has a physical representation of it. But getting back to the stuff with the rocket launchers, this is a bit of an aside. Is there a way? Have you found out like a good way to just like commandeer a tank?
No,
because
I just ended up C4ing the ground, and then like one tank took off, and he was going on a little twisty road, and I kind of cut him off a little bit, and then stole a vehicle that shot rockets and had a big cannon.
So you had to kill him. I want to know how to cleanly take out a tank and like trank everybody out. I guess maybe it's once you get the Fulton upgraded enough that you can just get that thing out of there.
And then it just like comes down and it shakes out the tank and it's all out.
Yes.
It lands safely.
Two things I absolutely love about this game, and I did not know that this was going to be in there at all. But the ability to take a shower on Mother Base, like when you're covered in blood coming back from a mission,
flies are flying around you.
It feels so good just to come out completely clean. Or like even if I have like a smudge of blood on my backpack or my scarf, it's like, well, gotta go take a shower, boys, and go in there.
Come on, D-Dog.
I won't be undressing, by the way.
Yeah. He's a never nude.
And then the other thing I absolutely love, obviously, is having the pop music that you can play through the cassettes during missions, which is not practical because you always need the audio, I feel like, of your environment to fully understand what's going on if a car's coming down the road or something. But like listening to like Man Who Sold the World while infiltrating a base is so fun.
And it's really good.
The way the audio is like distorted also, like your footsteps are muffled and all the like ambient sound is kind of distorted. It's fantastic.
Yeah. There's an option that I kind of accidentally discovered where like listening to David Bowie, you can turn it so it's a speaker like on your hip.
Oh, really?
So it changes the audio?
Yeah, like it sounds different, and like I guess if you ran into a base, everyone would be like, I immediately turned it off. I was like, I do not want that to be on right now.
I wonder if that's what it was, because Joe was talking about how there's a tape, and God,
I found it.
The one, it's just a long...
It's about 18 seconds of someone pooping a lot.
Okay, there we go. And you can play it if you're in a porta potty, and then nobody will check it to see if you're hiding in there.
That must be... Yeah,
apparently.
okay, so that's what the practical application of that is.
Otherwise, you're just listening to it privately.
Yep. Pretty good.
Sophomore too, big boss.
Way to do it on your sophomore effort. This is a bit of an aside too, but like, I guess you can Fulton out like entire Jeeps full of people and stuff like that, which is great. But I had this moment where I'm like, oh no, this Jeep stopped and like they're coming to look for me, and I tranked all of them.
Oh boy!
Oh god, I hope they don't screw up my.
That is a really solid Big Boss impression.
Yeah, that's him. We make our own fun. And so I piled them all back into the Jeep and just drove them like in behind some bushes somewhere because I was just feeling lazy. It was one of those things where it's just like, can I do this? Am I doing this? Yeah, okay, that's fine. I'm doing this. And Metal Gear, like, Phantom Pain is full of so many of those moments. Mm-hmm. Just, you don't know, like, are they going to let me do this? Like, oh, yeah, I got this.
Yeah, taken care of.
Oh, man. Like, speaking of the cassette stuff with the headphones and, like, playing off the hip and, like, the care that went into that.
Yeah.
There was one moment where I think Miller or Ocelot or someone hands off a cassette to Snake. And the loving craftsmanship that went into that cassette, the label, that Sony as the label, and then like the sun, like the gleam as the light reflects off it, it's just like, oh my god. And I saw Kojima tweet the other day, like, look at what song came up on my Sony Walkman the other day, and it's like an MP3 player. Do they still call Sony MP3 players Walkman?
Yeah, no one corrects Mr. Kojima.
Correct.
So
Mr. Kojima, the year is 2015.
Talking about how pristine that looked, this game I think looks really good overall. It reminded me of one of the most cocky moments in game development when PT was first shown, and Kojima did that interview. I think it was with Jeff Keighley, where he's like, we didn't want people to know it was us and the Fox engine, so we had to downgrade the visuals a little bit and make it look like an indie game. But PT still looks absolutely fantastic.
It looks great. But I mean, Phantom Pain is like, there's this layer of gloss over everything, I think. Mm-hmm. I want to find Lisa the decoy in there as well, too.
Oh yeah, I read about that early on. I forgot all about that.
She's in there. You can use her as a decoy and it scares people.
Really?
Yeah.
How do you do that?
Of course. I don't know. Maybe it's just one of the decoys you research, but I got the first decoy. I haven't used it yet.
It's pretty great.
Yeah. It's a nice FU to Konami. Alongside, in theory, how many title screens are in this game. It's like, we were worried about Hideo Kojima's name being in this game. Turns out it's every hour.
Yeah, and
at least
they do the dumb thing where they say what characters are going to be in that mission.
I hate that.
Screws up some surprises. I've been trying to like avert my eyes, but it's like, oh wait, maybe they're over. Nope. Oh, okay. The skulls are in this one again. Okay.
But and I wouldn't mind it so much with characters. That's bad. But then things that aren't characters, like machinery, is like labeled. So the mission I'm on, it's like, well, I know I'm going to run into this thing that I've seen in the trailers. In this part right here, it's just a bummer.
Yeah, I got to tinker around with like one of those D-Walker things.
Oh, so good.
They're so goofy and amazing. Like, God, because that game plays all of its like tech so straight on, but I don't know. It's just, it works out really, really well, and it's goofy, but it's really fun.
Oh, nice, good to hear. Hey, we're probably going to be talking about Metal Gear forever, everybody.
That's it. We're done.
I'm sorry. So expect a lot more Metal Gear content on this podcast overall.
Yeah.
So we'll keep checking in.
Yeah.
It'll be exciting once we get to a new location outside of Afghanistan and stuff like that.
Should we talk about? Should we answer some emails?
Yeah. Let's move on to emails.
Okay. Welcome back to the Game Informer Show. So now we're going to answer some emails. If you have something you want us to talk about or a question for us, you can email us at podcast@gameinformer.com. Every week we choose an email of the week. We'll send you a little thank you. So let's just get right into it. This one's from Joel from Australia.
Joel?
Hey guys, I have random things that throw me back to past game experiences. For example, one particular energy drink taste will take me back to the first time I played Team Fortress 2, mostly 2 Fort, at a house LAN party, and when I fell in love with the vanilla version of the game. I also have a particular song that will immediately take me back to running around the streets of the map District in Call of Duty 4. It's a weird memory trigger, and just wondering if you guys had any. Joel.
I have one.
Yeah.
When I hear the Super Mario Brothers theme, I immediately go back to Super Mario.
I knew it. I knew you were going to go that route.
No, seriously. Like, I always think about. Well, not always, because it would be overwhelming. I was playing Dead Rising when my wife told me that we were going to have a baby boy.
Wait, so you had to pause Dead Rising?
I had to
I don't think you had to pause. There's a time thing, so you had to keep rolling.
Honey, I can't skip this cutscene. It's just,
I gave her one of these.
Like, hold on a second. Can you just lean like 2 inches away from the TV and read the text?
How good for you?
This because I can't
That's
read
great
it.
news, I think.
Yeah.
Did you time your birth control methods with like Dead Rising 2 then, so you could sync that up perfectly for the second little baby?
Yeah, our baby Chuck Green Cork.
I was gonna say, how is little Frank doing? Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
So wait. So seeing
Every
your
time
kid
I see
reminds
my
you of Dead
son, I
Rising.
think of Dead Rising.
It could be something that reminds you of a game, or
Yeah, I always Modest Mouse's Good News for People Who Love Bad News. I remember I got this sound system right when that CD came out that let me combine CDs with game audio, and so I played SSX3 with like the music turned down in SSX3, and then just listened to that album. And so every time I hear that album, I always think of SSX3 and that, especially that one huge run, the most memorable part of SSX3, where it's like a half an hour run down the entire mountain. It's so good.
I would kill for that ability on my receiver.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I could sell you mine. I still have it actually after 11 years. Or
Can you
whatever.
guys hash this out right now and decide a price?
You.
Absolutely, you can kill me, Cork. Perfect.
Mine's music too, actually, like taking advantage of custom soundtracks. Hearing Hail to the Thief, Radiohead's album, makes me think of Crackdown, weirdly, because that's all I listen to while playing Crackdown.
Sounds like a good one.
Another weird one is Fugazi's End Hits, always makes me think of Golden Sun. And one more is another really weird one I have is Arcade Fire's, not their last album, but the album before that makes me think of Dead Space 2. Because there is a song, there are 2 songs on that album called Sprawl and Sprawl 2.
Oh,
and most of Dead Space 2 takes place in the Sprawl. And I was listening to that album and playing Dead Space 2 at the same time.
And you're thinking, what if there's a Sprawl 2?
It was just totally a tenuous overlap, but it was enough to be like I would spend all day at work looking up Dead Space 2 stuff, and then I was listening to that album.
I love that.
Have you ever told anybody about that other than this podcast? Is it something that you've tried to explain before and people are just like...
I wrote a blog about it, actually. Like when you... Yeah. So,
what? Really?
Yeah.
What
That's
blog?
great.
On Game Informer's website, you can go look up my blog.
All about the Sprawl...
Yeah, well, it's a list of like the albums that remind me of specific
That's
games
great.
that's on there.
I love that. This question was basically made for you.
Exactly.
For me, kind of
Thank you.
looping in
This
with
is Joel
Joel's,
from Australia.
Joel from Australia mentioning of an energy drink. Vanilla Coke reminds me of the launch of the Resident Evil remake. Like it was right around the exact time both those things came out, and I remember like I think I was graduating around the time or something. But so anytime I see a Vanilla Coke or especially taste one, I want to be playing that game, or maybe a little bit vice versa. For songs, like I have a couple. When I used to listen to a lot of metal, and not a lot of great metal, but I listened to some Disturbed, and I listened to some. God, why am I having trouble with the name of the game, the name of the band now? Like the I Stand Alone. It was
Stained.
No, it's not. That's a different one. It was the I Stand Alone, and they played it an army like recruiting.
I know the song well. Yeah.
Anyway, we're gonna
get Godsmack, Tim.
Godsmack. Thanks, you, Wade. Thank you, Wade. Oh my Godsmack. I can't believe I couldn't think of that. Anyway, reminds me of Perfect Dark and like Majora's Mask. I was playing around that.
Did you get really into it? Like you see Link standing up at night in Termina, it's like I stand alone.
Yeah, I'll like beat the temple and stuff. I'm like, yeah, you do. You stand alone, Link.
Well, with the 2 other parts of the Triforce, but still kind of alone.
Tattle's here too, but don't worry about her.
Oh no, you're poisoned. You're down with the sickness. Stupid thing. And then I in World of Warcraft, just outside of Booty Bay, in I think like Stranglethorn Vale, I listened to Pearl Jam's 10 on repeat while grinding like all the enemies down there and just gaining levels. Yeah.
Every time I like watch The People's Court or Judge Joe Brown, I immediately want to play World of Warcraft.
Oh really?
Because that can't like those were shows that were on in the background as I was like unemployed and playing a lot of World of Warcraft.
Back in your heydays.
Oh man,
like being cool.
Glory days.
I had this great setup.
Roaring 20s.
I had our old computer, our old family computer, and like a crappy TV right next to it. And I would just, I think I've said this. I've played like a ton of Tomb Raider while watching like Frasier and Seinfeld and stuff like that, and just Tomb Raider.
Ooh, yeah, Final Fantasy 12 love line, like classic love line, and Final Fantasy 12.
Well, that's the majority
That's a
of
good
your
combo.
life, though, right? Everything love line all the time.
Final Fantasy 12,
Absolutely.
before podcast games were a thing where people would like, hey, this podcast is a good thing to listen to while I play this open world game. Final Fantasy 12 was a good
Something I've thought a lot about recently, Kyle, and you could probably help me with this, is how much of raising a child, I'm not having a child anytime soon, but probably in the next couple of years or whatever, right? But
That's
how
pretty
much
soon. Wait,
I don't know. Let's say 5 years.
Okay.
Probably.
You wanna
I'm
bet?
hold you to that.
Yeah, I'll bet you I'll have a kid in 5 years.
Oh man, I'm on that.
All right.
Hang on, reach across the table.
Wait, what's the bet? Is it a money thing? Or?
$10.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't have to love the kid. Like I just have to crank one out technically to win this bet, right?
Yourself. You have to give birth.
Anyways, I'm wondering how much of raising a child can I listen to podcasts to?
When they're infants, you can listen to a lot.
Yeah.
It gets a little
Okay.
harder when they start crawling, I would say. Maybe it gets a little tougher.
Once they can get out of their crib because you're neglecting them by not hearing them
They
because
can
you're
pull the earbuds out. Daddy, don't you want to hear my song?
At what point will they feel neglect for me not fully paying attention to them? If like they wanted to watch some movie and I could just, if they're like 4, can I still listen to podcasts?
You're going to be
during,
the
like,
worst dad.
just a podcasty kind of day.
It's going to be like a 2.5, 2. Maybe right before 2 is when you start feeling bad about.
All right. Sorry, I have a young nephew, and that's what I think about every time around him is how much could I hang out with this nephew while listening to podcasts? Would he notice?
Joel also follows up. I wanted to, that's the segment of the podcast we're doing. Joel was also the guy that said that he was going to do that Gone Home playthrough with all the doors unlocked, no audio diaries or anything, and he did follow up because we asked if he would. And some of the things, like the interesting stuff that he figured out was like he accidentally found the secret passage, like just kind of checking walls and stuff, kind of Wolfenstein style, he says. He thought that was pretty interesting. He missed a lot of the connections between Oscar, who I think was the dead original owner of that big house, and Terry, his son. And he thought that they were kind of separate characters. I don't think he picked up, or not it was nephew-uncle's relationship, I think. He thought that this Oscar guy was just a murderer or something, and died and left the house to him. But I don't actually know what was going on with Oscar in that game completely. He figured out that the wife was maybe like.
Should we spoil Gone Home here?
I guess
I don't think we want to. If we're promoting people do it this way.
Anyway,
does he recommend it?
Let me click before we do any spoilers. It's interesting because he figured out some of like the connections between certain characters, but didn't get the resolution to them in the way that I think the game was sort of trying to guide you through it with the design and like locked doors and stuff. But seemed like they enjoyed it. So I just wanted to follow up on that. Right. It seemed like a cool way to experience that game. But having wrong interpretations in this game is kind of a cool statement of like how it was designed. All right, so the next one comes from. This is Tony.
Hi, Tony.
Hey, Tony.
Hey, Tony.
Hey, awesome. Hey, awesome podcasters. I just want to say I love your podcast work. It's giving me something to do, to listen to while I play Dark Souls 2. Yada, yada, yada. Thank you, Tony. I was walking through the Minnesota State Fair yesterday, as
local.
I'm sure you've all done because we were in Minnesota. When I came across this awesome booth, it was filled to the brim with lots of Japanese merchandise that any gamer, self-respecting nerd would love to get their hands on. There's stuff like the original Chrono Trigger soundtrack, almost all of the soundtracks of Final Fantasy games, Pokemon plushies, tons of posters, and other things that made me dizzy with happiness. The question is, have you guys found stores like that one filled with cool gamer nerd merchandise? Tony. And Tony follows up giving people advice of where to find it at the State Fair. State Fair is over and only in Minnesota, so I don't know if that's super useful.
You know it so well. Have you ever seen this?
I think I saw that one, actually. I went on Friday night, last Friday, and gorged myself pleasantly. And I think I did see a weirdly, like, it reminded me a little bit of there's a store in Rosedale in Minnesota called Tamagotchi, I think is the name of it.
Head on down.
You're right.
Really great. Come on, if you're in like Twin Cities area, go check that out. But I mean, I kind of pulled this one because Ben, you and I were just in Japan.
Yeah, which is it's just filled with shops like this. Like Akihabara is kind of the classic place with a lot of gaming themed items.
Yes.
Tim's been there a million times. I've been there a handful of times at this point. And Super Potato is obviously the shop to go to. Just a ton of old gaming stuff, and it's just fascinating. You can spend hours in there.
There's tons of like awesome old game shops everywhere in Tokyo, specifically Akihabara. But Super Potato is like, they got like 3 different stories, I think, and just being surrounded by that much there's something cool about being surrounded in. So Japan, obviously, huge, crazy impact on the game industry. Super Mario Bros. Potentially single-handedly responsible for resurrecting the game industry after a crash, and just being in a store like Super Potato, surrounded by this much old Japanese video game culture, and I can't read the Famicom boxes, and there's all these colorful pictures on it, and just knowing that there's this wealth of games that never ever came out in the US, will never be localized, and lots of these games are probably responsible for people getting people into games in the 80s, and it just I need to learn Japanese immediately just so I can play all these games, and it's super charming. Beyond that, we went to Nakano Broadway.
Nagano and Broadway? Is that what it's called?
I mean, I kept calling it Nakano, but I think it's Nakano Broadway, but it's in Nakano.
It was a mall.
Yeah.
It was a really large mall, which was nice because basically the best parts of Akihabara kind of boiled down into one structure that's all air conditioned on the inside, which is nice this time of year in Japan. But it was a little bit weird on the first floor, then second floor and third floor and fourth floor. It was just an unbelievable amount of little trinkets, and they were selling so many smart little things where you fall into this trap in Japan where it's I recognize that toy from this show that I love that I didn't think anybody else knew.
Super specific reference.
I need to buy it, and it's such a slippery slope. But they had great stuff in some of these shops, like microscopic PlayStation 1s and PlayStation controllers, and then just the most obscure Wind Waker characters that are just tiny little keychain pieces and stuff. It's why would they make a toy of this? I need to buy all this because I don't know why it exists.
Yeah, Ben's been on this vision quest since we went to Japan. I don't know if it was last year or the year before, looking for a black and white Woody doll, basically the Toy Story 2 iteration.
The Woody's Roundup.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I found it the first time I went to Japan, and I was oh, this is cool, but I can find it online, no big deal. And then I couldn't find it online anywhere, but it's a life-size black and white Woody, and it looks so cool. And so this year I finally got a variant of it. Not the exact one I wanted, but basically it.
I think it's cooler, kind of have it strung up next to your computer.
Yeah, I got him hanging from the rafters. He's pretty sweet.
I found this really cool, again, a very specific little figure, and I don't even know if it was officially sanctioned by Capcom, but it's the first zombie from the entire Resident Evil series. Kenneth Sullivan's the first person confirmed zombie kill. Well, I guess Joseph is kind of. Anyway,
Cork, hang on, who is it?
It's the first humanoid zombie.
Yeah, he's right.
Yeah, it's the first humanoid zombie you see, and it's just the pose from when you find him. He's looking over his shoulder and stuff, and I'm this is awesome and super specific. And I didn't know I wanted this until I saw it, and that's a ton of Japan.
Yeah.
So
got some good ladies in a capsule machine where parts of their body are squished.
Well, that was weird. It was someone a lady.
Sounds awesome.
It's nothing that maybe there's some fetish around it. I don't know.
I guarantee there
But
is.
at the end of the day,
I discovered it
this
that
lady
day.
would you'd put it underneath a wine glass. It looked like her leg was crushed, but then also magnified by the stem, the base of the wine glass, and it was just kind of cartoonish and funny.
But the capsule's it's all different parts of her body that are being squished by this wine glass. You guys have got to check it out.
It's the only reason to go to Japan.
Absolutely.
Or the Minnesota State Fair.
Correct. But anyway, the connection there. There's also Japantown in God, is that San Francisco?
No, it's in Japan,
San Francisco. Anyway, there's great shops there too. I don't know.
Yeah.
Japan's kind of the mecca for that stuff.
Japan is Mecca.
Right. Here is this is Travis from Blaine, Minnesota.
Wow.
We get a lot of local emails. I'm not even pruning this. I look at that last.
We should broadcast from the state fair.
I think you're right.
That'd be really fun.
All right. Hello, podcast people. Insert comments here about how I like the show, how good looking Ben Hanson is, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know about that last part. So Travis says, I loved Final Fantasy VII a lot. I played it at a pivotal time in my gaming life and became enamored with characters, the world, JRPGs in general. My question for you is this. Am I allowed to be excited about the Final Fantasy VII remake? Do you think that it will be everything Final Fantasy VII was, but with clean and polished graphics, yada, yada? I fear the declining popularity of turn-based classic JRPGs. Square Enix will change it up. Basically, the reason, we've tread some of this ground before about Final Fantasy VII and the remake, but I think the interesting part is he allowed to be excited about it?
Just keep your expectations in check. Some things about this game are going to hit you like a nostalgia freight train, and I'm sure you're going to be annoyed endlessly by other things that they change.
Yeah. I think that's the thing is of course you're allowed to be excited about it, but what you have in your mind is the perfect remake is probably not what's going to happen because everyone has a different interpretation.
Unless
of that.
you send a letter to Square Enix
Correct.
headquarters with your exact vision.
Anyway, it's always bummed me out too when people like say like, if someone wants to get excited, imagine if you were as excited for you as you are now for The Force Awakens. Take that for example. But you were surrounded by people that are just kind of like, man, we've been burned before. Why are you getting invested?
I don't understand those people, but yeah.
Well, imagine if you were surrounded by more of them and it'd be really like deflating and a huge bummer. Let people get as excited as they want and then be disappointed if they are disappointed. But otherwise, it's just don't ever. I hate it when people try to check other people's enthusiasm for something. If you're pumped about like getting a new iPhone or something about like the new iOS, and you're surrounded by someone who's just like one of those iPhone Apple poo-pooers,
Yeah, people are really excited about those live photos they debuted yesterday during the Apple thing, and you had to poo-poo their enthusiasm for live photo ideas.
I was actually excited about that.
It sounds actually kind of interesting.
Yeah, I think
Except
it's cool.
if it delays your photo, though, before you take it, I don't know. I have a lot of action shots on my phone. Some people running away.
Hot action shots, yes. Anyway, you guys have anything else to add on that?
No. Be excited. Be very excited. It's good. But
So this is
but I think Hanson's right. Like I think there will be changes to Final Fantasy VII that
You heard it here first, everybody. It's not going to be the same game.
That's right. But don't let that hinder your excitement.
I don't know. I think enthusiasm can carry you a long way in the world too.
Absolutely.
I think raw enthusiasm is refreshing in a lot of cases, as long as you're not a psychopath about it. How much time do we have left?
You can get one more in there.
Or should we click over into some of the kind words we've gotten on our iTunes page?
Oh, yeah, the thing you've been promising for 3 years.
Yeah, so a couple weeks back, we noted that our sort of podcast page on iTunes is a little out of date. A lot of the reviews were from Matt Helgeson's reign, and a great reign it was, and a lot of people talked about it, but we were sort of trying to entice people to... it was a beautiful, refreshing rain.
What a thrill.
A sweet spring rain. April shower. And we were kind of inviting people to go back and give us some
erase history,
nice words, and update the podcast reviews
like a
little bit.
Stalinist purge.
And we said, hey, at least the trains ran on time. And we promised to read a few of them out here. So these are some nice reviews. We have one here from Sammy Swanson Sam. Huge fan of the show, been a listener since Matt was the host, and I actually prefer the current format because it feels more laid back, and the guys and Kim just talk about whatever. So thank you. This is Kukamunga says, Mr. Sultry Sounds of Matt's voice, but I like the new energy. Bumfoot. I read the magazine and their website for information about the gaming industry. The Remade Podcast is an excellent listen. And then we got Tim Cole 31. Love the new format. Senior Suave. Hosts are extremely charismatic and knowledgeable. I don't know about that last one. Plenty of great reviews, speculation, and interviews. Wide Angle.
What?
Just a 5-star review, and it just says, even after all these years. That's all it says.
How beautiful.
John M. Silverman, new format about 5 to 6 months ago with longer length and more varied discussions. New hosts Ben and Tim kill it each week. And then we have Elgar
Thanks for a lot, Tom.
Elgar Duck, our friend Patrick,
Familiar with him?
who was Question of the Week not that long ago. The GI staff, hosted by Ben and Tim, put out a great... What's that?
Nothing.
Oh.
The coast is clear. Keep reading.
Put out a great show every Thursday. Anyway, that's kind of paraphrasing. In the end, we invite you to keep giving us kind words because that means good things for us and sort of validates what we're doing here every week because we put a lot of work into this and we love that you guys listen.
Tim runs on it. He reads that stuff before he falls
That's
asleep
it, man.
every night.
Every star. As long as it's 5 stars. Anything less, and you're going to see a lot of me like just staring in the mirror contemplatively. But really appreciate the kind words. And for this question of the week, email of the week, before we forget that, we kicked it off really well, I thought, with Joel. So really appreciate that. That's definitely email of the week. So just about like things that trigger these fun memories, these weird correlations. And if you have more emails, hypotheticals, cool conversation starters,
opinions. I want like strong opinions. I want weird stuff sent into this thing.
Even stuff about current games. If you find we're not talking about something that you want to hear more on, or we already moved on from Mad Max,
or you think we are a moron.
If you think if we're morons, just let us know. Podcast@gameinformer.com.
There we go. You got it.
Yeah.
Cool. You want to stay tuned to this episode of the podcast where we have the interview with Jason Michael Paul, all about Zelda music and work with Nintendo and Square and all that fun stuff. So stay tuned for that. Jason Michael Paul, thank you so much for joining us today, sir.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
Messy.
No, it looks good. People on YouTube love seeing messy hair.
Great.
Do you want to just explain your job for us, please?
Yeah, I'll try my best. So I'm essentially the guy who organizes everything and obviously works with the original creators of these wonderful franchises that I work with, and really just kind of put forth the idea, and then in the hopes that in the case of Square Enix, and of course with Nintendo, in the hopes that they'll bite off on it. And obviously here we are. I've been doing the Legend of Zelda Symphony to Goddesses ever since it started in 2011, and here we are in 2015, 2016 coming up shortly, and we're the show's evolving. The brand is still the games they're still coming out with games, so
yeah.
There's not really going to be any end in sight soon, so we're really excited.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think a lot of people are familiar with, the Symphony of the Goddesses series. I think it was the 2011 E3 presentation where we learned that Skyward Sword was going to be packed in with sort of a kind of a retrospective, like just compilation of a bunch of awesome orchestrated Zelda music.
Yeah, that was an amazing project that I was so grateful to be a part of, and it was really the first time Nintendo had ever done anything like that. So for them to ask me to produce that for them, that was just an amazing opportunity that I think we delivered. I think the end product, the recording really turned out beautifully, and it was not a live recording. It was a recording that was done in a studio, or I should say a live studio, at Bastille Chapel in Washington. So. And then, of course, we had all the other ancillary things that came out of that, such as the 3D shoot of the recording. That was really cool. I don't know if you guys got a chance to see that. That was put out by Nintendo that accompanied that recording.
Interesting.
Yeah, it was amazing. We did a lot of cool stuff, and we're continuing to do a lot of cool stuff. So. Yeah, that was a great project.
Yeah, I don't want to kiss your ass, Jason, too much, but I swear to God, I put that CD in the CD player in my car in 2011. I have not taken it out since.
He's not lying.
I swear to God. I mean, I'm listening to podcasts and stuff a lot of the time, but every time I switch back to CD, it is always that Zelda suite. It is so good. Like the Gerudo Valley track on that one especially is just absolutely fantastic.
Wow. That's music to my ears. No pun intended. That's pretty cool.
So you kicked off. You also followed that first concert series up with Second Quest, I think. So now what number are you on as far as tours go?
Yeah, we're on Master Quest.
Okay.
So
of course.
We're gonna stick with this as opposed to other incarnations. We've made the decision to stick with Master Quest. So. Even in cities that we're going back into for the second time, we're going to stick with the Master Quest. Whereas before, the model was to go in with Second Quest.
Okay.
Like for example, New York, which is a city that we typically do every year with these shows. We'll be going back into New York after this show with the same Master Quest. But what it'll be is we'll change the program up to do various, we're going to add to the program. We're going to mix it up. The only thing that's really going to remain the same will be the 4-movement symphony.
Okay.
It's going to be a new show essentially.
Do you take requests from fans? How do you incorporate new tracks into the mix?
Yeah. I get a lot of email from fans. And then, of course, I'm working with Nintendo, and they have an opinion on how things roll. And I typically, it's kind of a combination of everything, really. And then, of course, with some of the newer titles, the re-releases and things like that, which warrant the excuse to update the program, like for example with Majora's Mask.
Yeah.
Oh, sure.
That was a great excuse to add more music from Majora's Mask, and then of course update with the visuals the previous arrangement. So good stuff.
What have been some like specific tracks that you've added throughout the years that have just become overwhelmingly popular that the crowd really gives a reaction to?
A Link Between Worlds was added, and that's has been a big fan favorite. It's a great rendition, and then of course Majora's Mask, Skyward Sword, when that was launched, we obviously added an arrangement from that, which has been a fan favorite.
It's still still weird to me that Skyward Sword's theme is the Zelda lullaby backwards. Isn't that the whole thing?
Exactly.
That's so surreal. Do you explain that to the musicians ever? Like, by the way, if you notice similarities between these two tracks.
Yeah, we don't get a lot of that time with the musicians, and so sometimes it's I wish we could have those types of discussions with the musicians, but in our business, time is money, so a lot of times we don't really have the time to explain a lot of the history behind it,
Right.
So
how does this work? You're traveling around the country and then just getting the native orchestra to join you, and that's just training them really quickly in all the Zelda music?
Yeah, that's typically how it works. And, fortunately, I've been doing this a while, where a lot of the orchestras that we're working with, I have a relationship with. So I am able to advance the shows a little bit better, and making sure that a lot of the musicians are not just familiarizing themselves with the program on the day of. So, but yeah, typically it is local musicians that are, we're working with in the respective markets. And, that's kind of a beautiful thing in itself. It could be a good thing and a bad thing. In some markets, obviously, musicianship's better than others. But that's typically how it works.
And I know, obviously, given traveling the world and working with different musicians across the world, you're going to be exposed to people that are varying levels of gamers, and some may be really into Zelda, some may just be classically trained and have no familiarity with it. What is the reaction that you get from someone who's been playing music all their life but unfamiliar with Zelda's music, and just sort of do they appreciate it, or is it sometimes sort of simple to them, or how do they respond to that?
Yeah, the response is really, really, really positive.
Okay.
The team of arrangers, the team of people that we work with, are all very very well trained in this type of genre. Okay. So a lot of the credibility that is established with these musicians and is just from the actual presentation of the music itself. It's done in a way that the musicians are they know that this should be taken seriously.
Right.
So there's not a question of whether this music is legitimate or not. Just by the presentation itself, the way that the music's arranged, you could tell that the people who put together the program are of a very experienced background.
Well, it has to be interesting too, because even if they're skeptical about the music, like the second they start playing it and just seeing that crowd reaction, have these musicians ever gotten that much of a reaction in their lives?
Yeah, because obviously, audience participation is sort of encouraged in a way. There's a screen being projected, and like following up on that, sort of what is the response? Because usually you imagine a classical concert and people are sort of quiet until it's time to applause.
Yeah, well, we I'm trying to break down those traditional norms of symphonies. We definitely we want people to show their appreciation, and obviously the form of the way that people do that is by applause. So in a typical symphony concert, you don't really hear a lot of applause. You kind of, it's almost quiet. It's almost annoyingly quiet. Okay. So we definitely work to kind of dispel those notions of what a symphony concert's supposed to be. That's where I think this type of music, this type of genre has definitely found its place in a symphony hall, because it is breaking down those barriers of what people have grown accustomed to with regards to a symphony production.
Yeah. And on the topic of applause and playing around the world, do you find that most people, no matter what country you're playing in, respond to the same kind of favorites? Or do you notice that there might be variances of just sort of different favorites that might appear, kind of crop out from where you are playing in the world? Like, maybe somewhere they like Gerudo Valley more than somewhere else, or is it just sort of universal favorites?
I think it's universal.
Okay.
I think it has proven to be universal. The fans react pretty similarly. The good thing is that there's not really a language barrier in terms of with the gameplay. And so people do understand the story regardless of what language it's told in.
Yeah.
So that's the beauty of the Legend of Zelda itself. But we've seen pretty much the responses being very similar in all markets, even including in Japan. That was one of the downfalls that I wish if we were to do it all over again is when we do a show in Japan is I would like to have localized it in Japanese. We went in with English in Japan, which I think that was a little bit of a disconnect, which I regret now. But if I get that chance again, I'm definitely going to make sure that it's in Japanese.
Well, how much are you actually talking during the show?
Pardon me?
How much are you actually talking during the show then?
Oh, well, I'm not talking. I was just talking about the game itself. A lot of the footage that we have captured is in English.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
As opposed to in Japanese. So that would have been the one thing that I wish we would have done differently.
Yeah.
Jason, are you still working on the replay concert series?
Absolutely. Okay. Yeah. I've been so busy with Zelda that that's been put on the shelf, mm-hmm. but we recently had a meeting, and we're targeting some newer titles and some additions to the existing program, and we're also going to ramp up our campaign and get some more dates with that as well. So that'll be it's a great show, and I'm really proud of it, and I think it's just a matter of just time. Yeah. I think once people realize that this is not just traditional, there's actually a story behind the concert. It's not your traditional kind of like greatest hits kind of concert.
Okay.
There's a little bit more involved with it. And I think once people can kind of understand that, I think they'll gravitate towards that show as well.
We should probably just ask, why are you doing this? How did you get started doing this? What propelled you forward?
Yeah, I think I had been in the video game industry dating back to, circa 1998, 1999. I was fresh out of college, and I'm from San Francisco. So obviously Sony Computer Entertainment America was my first real big client that I was working with and working for.
Doing music stuff or?
A lot of their trade show, E3, concerts, special events, parties, things like that. Things that required entertainment, design, branding. So that really kind of paved the way for me in terms of having that video game experience. And then obviously as my career moved forward, I started getting more into live entertainment. And then I landed a gig with Luciano Pavarotti and the Three Tenors. And that was really what kind of gave me the exposure to the symphony and the opera and the classical. And that was really where the light went off in my head, having traveled to Japan and seeing kind of what they were doing with Dragon Quest and Final Fantasy, but more on a musical level, not so much the multimedia. I thought that would be my niche. And then obviously here I am 10 years later doing the same thing. So it was clearly a niche that I exploited and I've hopefully created something out of it.
Yeah. What were those early discussions like with Square Enix versus Nintendo? How receptive are they to this idea?
Mm-hmm. Well, they were very receptive. But it was more a doing of the U.S. Operation that was really pushing this along, and of course, Square Enix of Japan was always kind of they weren't as agreeable But it was basically the support of the U.S. operation that really paved the way for the video game music concerts coming to the U.S.
Is it hesitation just because it's not in their region and they can have less control about it?
That's part of it, but I think a lot of it had to do with the focus of their company as a business is on video games and less on the music.
Right.
And, that was really where that was coming from. I think, in Japan, you probably know as well as I do, but music is more important. It's you have in the music stores, you have a department that's devoted to soundtrack music that's quite large. It's voluminous, and it's considerable. It's like a hip hop section in the U.S. Video game music is treated as such. So, in America, it's relatively new, and it's not their core business. So, there was a lot of reluctancy there, and I think in part it's still quite a lot of companies are reluctant because again, it's not their core business. It's not where they want to focus their efforts. But I think if treated properly, I think it could be a very, very important marketing vehicle. Yeah. Something that could be something that can truly be the ultimate brand experience.
Yeah. Awesome. And so if people want to check out Symphony of the Goddesses, what are some of the next legs of the tour if you just want to shoot out some cities and countries?
And are they sold out?
Yeah, that's an important distinction.
Yeah, I wish everything was selling out that quick. I mean, we do get there, but it's a lot of work. When we're very ambitious this year. We've taken on almost double the amount of shows that we have in previous years. I've aligned myself with very key strategic partners, and my goal is to basically be able to bring video game music to the masses. So, in answer to your question, we're everywhere. You name a city in North America, chances are we're going to be there. We're in Durham this week in North Carolina. We're in St. Louis for a series of shows with the St. Louis Symphony at Powell Hall, followed by DC, which is a great market for us. But we're not sold out. There's tickets available, and we definitely encourage people to come out. If they're on the fence about going to a show, they need to climb it. They need to get there because, we really, really could use the support. And it's a show that it's not to be missed. If they have never been to a video game music concert, then this would probably be the best warmer. Yeah. Because it doesn't get any better than this show.
Yeah, and you guys play Ballad of the Windfish, so you don't need another reason really to head out there.
Yeah, I checked it out years ago, I think on the first leg of it, and it was a fantastic time. And even if someone's just a middling Zelda fan, the enthusiasm in the crowd and sort of just the performance itself is really, really breathtaking. But if you are a fan, it is absolutely a don't miss situation.
Yeah. I think so. I think it's you don't have to be a Zelda fan to appreciate the show. Obviously, some of the nuances and some of the little hidden features of the concert that you probably would need to be a Zelda fan to appreciate. But no, it's an educational medium as well. We take as much pride in entertaining existing fans, but also bringing hopefully a new fan base to the franchise. People that never really knew what Zelda is. Now they can have a crash course through a 2-hour concert.
Yeah.
And the chances are it's going to cover everything in the franchise. From the boss battles to to the story of the Triforce. To the goddesses, everything. I mean, it all is. It's beautifully told, and it's told through the music and the visuals.
And since we talked about Super Mario Maker a lot in this episode earlier, I mean, you must have your eyes on doing a Mario concert similarly, right?
I've been doing this forever, so I mean, I've done concerts with Mario, Metroid, Zelda. Before I was doing this concert, I was doing presenting work from Nintendo, which is how I even got started working with Nintendo. I was like, for example, when I launched Play, a video game symphony in 2006, Mr. Kondo came and performed on piano, and so this is definitely something that I can only put forth ideas.
Right.
I have amazing ideas, but it's only going to be realized if I'm given the opportunity. So it's kind of a difficult business to be in because, I have a goal, but I truly need the support of the publishers.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Well, hopefully Nintendo sees the positive reaction to something like Symphony of the Goddesses and is willing to branch out, because I know there's plenty of other amazing Nintendo music I'd like to hear. Like
surely they appreciate the checks in the mail, right? That has to be constantly flowing their way from this thing.
Well, I mean, I think when you're that big, it's nice to get a royalty check, but I think their focus is on, and this is what I really value about Nintendo, is their focus is on how do they make better games, how do they improve their company, how do they give back to the community, and I think they see this more as a way to give back to the community than they do as a moneymaker.
It's nice. They seem to be doing more and more,
which
of that, so.
I admire. So
yeah, absolutely. Definitely. Well, hey, Jason, I know you got to get running, so thank you so much for your time, man. Definitely. What's the website? What do you check out, or what do you recommend people check out to see the tours?
Absolutely. So www.zelda-symphony.com. We have a full schedule there. We also have the program listed on the website. We have an eShop now that you could take a look at. We've been expanding our merchandise lineup to appeal to all the fans. We've definitely that's one way to get in touch. Yeah, and then just Twitter handle is just Zelda Symphony.
Cool.
And then of course you can always go on Facebook and like the Legend of Zelda, which is what we're like too. So yeah.
Perfect.
Awesome.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us, Jason. And
No
thank
worries.
you for watching or listening to this episode of the Game Informer Show. And we'll see you next week. Bye.
Thank you so much, guys.
Yeah, no problem, man.
Thanks.
Take care.